Chapter 247. Zhou took the opportunity and rushed to the side of the white cocoon again. He stabbed in again, but this time, he stabbed at the strange creature inside. Ding! Zhou heard a crisp sound that sounded like jade colliding. The tip of the Overlord's spear failed to pierce through the seemingly fragile skin. Instead, it felt like it had slammed into an iron wall. It's that hard? Zhou was alarmed as he wondered what level the dimensional creature in the white cocoon was. However, with things having come to this point, it was impossible for Zhou to give up. All he could do was try again and again, hoping to use multiple attacks to tear through the creature's skin like before. However, this time it was clearly futile. The constant attacks failed to tear through the creature's skin as though it was an indestructible rock. At this point in time, how could Zhou be willing to give up? He gritted his teeth and activated the Sigh of the King. The power of a life providence was different from primordial energy skills and primordial energy art. To the average person, it was just a different power model. However, to Zhou, be it in-game or in reality, using the Sigh of the King was a very dangerous matter. This was because once the life providence was activated, not only would the blood-colored avatar be affected in-game, but even he would be affected by the Sigh of the King's power in reality. Once it was used improperly, Zhou would end up self-destructing. Therefore, if he didn't have a reason to use it, Zhou wouldn't be willing to use the Sigh of the King. Even if he could stop in time, he would have to lie in bed for a few days before his bones would slowly heal. The pain and itch was unimaginable to others. Zhou had already experienced the feeling of using the Sigh of the King twice. If it was possible, he wasn't willing to try it a third time. However, he had no choice but to use it again. Otherwise, even the Overlord's spear with Ever Victorious couldn't injure the creature in the white cocoon. He didn't know when he would have the ability to kill the creature in the white cocoon. A terrifying force instantly descended on Zhou as the blood-colored avatar's strength skyrocketed in-game. Without any hesitation, he used Ghost Steps and Transcendent Flying Immortal. The Overlord's spear in his hand instantly stabbed into the white cocoon with a terrifying force that tore through space. When the spear light hit the creature's skin, it immediately shattered and scattered in all directions like broken glass. When the spear tip pierced the skin, it finally broke through the white and tender skin and pierced in a little bit. However, it was only a tiny bit. It was probably less than a centimeter from the tip of the spear. This alarmed Zhou. Although the power of the Sigh of the King had just been activated, it was enough to kill an existence like the Ghost King in the Yin-Yang world. Such strength, coupled with the Overlord's spear that was ever victorious, was only able to tear apart the creature's flesh and blood. This made Zhou suspect that the dimensional creature in the white cocoon was very likely at the legendary mythical stage. Although Banana Fairy and Truth Listener were also at the mythical stage, they could only be considered half-mythical. They might advance to the mythical stage in the future, but they weren't now. At the instant the spear tip stabbed into the flesh, the life in the white cocoon moved. Its head slowly turned a little, revealing half of its side profile. It was perfect, as though it had walked out of a painting. An orange-red eye appeared as it stared at the blood-colored avatar outside the white cocoon through the spear hole. The eye had an indescribable demonic feeling to it. Its pupil was like an orange-red gem, without any impurities. However, even Zhou, who was outside the game, had goosebumps when he was stared at by that gaze. Bam! Almost at the same time, a force erupted from the white cocoon, instantly sending the Overlord's spear and the blood-colored avatar flying. The blood-colored avatar flew across Ant City like a cannonball and slammed into the stone wall. Although the blood-colored avatar didn't immediately die, Zhou could sense that all the bones in its body had broken. The pain assaulted Zhou's nerves, but this time, the bones weren't broken by the Sigh of the King, but by the terrifying force. That must be a mythical creature. With just a glance and without a move, the blood-colored avatar that had activated the Sigh of the King was nearly dead. Such power was just too terrifying. Clang! The Overlord's spear that had broken into several pieces slammed into the stone wall. The Overlord's spear's outcome was even worse than Zhou Wen's. After it broke, it immediately vanished like ashes. It left Zhou Wen's heart aching. It wasn't easy for him to obtain the Overlord's spear with Ever Victorious, but it had been destroyed before he could even warm it up. However, as the Overlord's spear vanished, a drop of crystalline orange-red blood dripped down from the tip of the spear. It floated in the air like a gemstone the size of a rice grain. Discovered mythical blood essence. Do you want to absorb it? The game didn't hesitate as it hurriedly chose to absorb it. The blood-colored avatar stretched out its palm with great difficulty. The sigh of the king had already been dispelled, and most of the blood-colored avatar's bones were broken. Its arms and fingers were bent as it reached out with great difficulty to touch the drop of blood. At the same time, the game screen suddenly turned black. Zhou Wen immediately had the urge to curse. The blood-colored avatar couldn't hold on any longer and died. If the blood was gone after the respawn, all of Zhou Wen's hard work would have been in vain. Just as Zhou Wen wanted to immediately drip his blood to revive the blood-colored avatar, he suddenly felt a strange force flow out from the mysterious phone and instantly fill Zhou Wen's entire body. His body, which had suffered from excessive internal bleeding due to using the Sigh of the King, gradually recovered at an extremely fast speed under the nourishment of the strange force. In just a few seconds, Zhou Wen's damaged body recovered to normal. As for the strange force, it continued fusing into his body, making him feel indescribably comfortable. He felt as though all his cells had come alive, as though he had been reborn. After a while, this feeling gradually disappeared. After he completely recovered, Zhou Wen hurriedly dripped a drop of blood on the mysterious phone to revive the blood-colored avatar. He carefully looked at the blood-colored avatar's information. With this look, Zhou Wen was immediately surprised. His primordial energy stat had become a point. Just like before, there was an additional word behind his primordial energy value. Taboo. Zhou Wen looked at the two words, but he didn't understand what they meant. He thought to himself, strength has the suffix sun, because it absorbed the god power crystal of the sun god. Speed has the suffix trajectory, because it absorbed the god power crystal of the god of trajectory. Could it be that the white cocoon is also a god? Is its name the god of taboo? Chapter 248. The blood he obtained from the white cocoon gave Zhou Wen hope of advancing to the epic stage. Now, he was only short of 21 points in constitution. Now, Zhou Wen knew of two other places where the white cocoon was. One was the chick's nest, but Zhou Wen didn't dare go there. Even Ah Xing didn't dare have any thoughts of resisting there. Even if he activated the Sigh of the King, he would probably only be sending himself to his death. Besides, now that the chick was following Zhou Wen and had once helped him, he couldn't bring himself to touch the white cocoon protected by the giant bird. Then, all that's left is the white cocoon protected by the WRM under Old Dragon Cave's Dragon's Well. Zhou Wen felt a headache when he thought of the WRM. The WRM was clearly much stronger than the golden flying ant. Perhaps the WRM itself was a mythical creature. If he wanted to penetrate the white cocoon under such a creature's nose and obtain the blood of the creature inside, he might as well fight the WRM directly. It would be easier to die. Even though he knew that there was no chance, Zhou Wen refused to give up and gave it a try. As expected, before he could approach the stone pillar, the WRM was awakened. Then, it opened its mouth and let out a roar, instantly killing the blood-colored avatar. Even Ghost Bride, who had a ghostly body, wasn't spared. Her soul was dissipated by the dragon's roar. How can I obtain it? It's impossible unless my body can withstand the power of the Sigh of the King and allow the Sigh of the King's power to descend completely. That way, there might be a sliver of a chance. Zhou Wen put down his phone and had no intention of trying a second time. It was useless even if he tried. The two weren't on the same level. In front of absolute strength, everything was futile. Zhou, where are you? I've been waiting for you all day. Wang Lu called angrily. Sorry, I'll be right there. Only then did Zhou recall that he still had to be Wang Lu's attendant at night. He hurriedly washed his face and left. What's wrong with you? You're a man, yet you're late. You're not a gentleman at all, Wang Lu said angrily. Sorry, I was wrong. Zhou felt that he couldn't explain because he was indeed in the wrong. All he could do was lower his head and admit his mistake. Since you're in the wrong, you have to accept the punishment. Do you have any objections? Wang Lu asked. No. Zhou shook his head. That's what you said. You can't go back on your word. Wang Lu narrowed her eyes. Apart from murder, arson, and other immoral acts, you can punish me for anything. Zhou had no choice but to admit defeat. It's not that serious. Follow me. Wang Lu smiled even more happily as she led Zhou out of school. Zhou originally imagined that leaving Sunset College was the privilege of people like Xing. Even Li Xian couldn't leave the school casually, but Wang Lu had easily taken him out. It's still good to have privileges. Zhou sighed inwardly. There was already a car waiting outside the college. Wang Lu led Zhou into the car and headed straight for the biggest commercial street in Luoyang. Qin Xiuan's Xiuan crystal shop was also on that street. Wang Lu didn't go to the crystal shop. She went to a shop that sold all kinds of cosmetics and clothes. Zhou really couldn't understand why Wang Lu was buying these things. Sunset College was a half-military school. On campus, only students were allowed to wear school uniforms, which were basically simplified versions of military uniforms. Furthermore, students weren't allowed to put on makeup. It was fine to secretly put on some light makeup, but if it was slightly obvious, they would be discovered and punished by the student council. Although Wang Lu was considered a member of the privileged class in the college, Zhou didn't see her put on makeup when he saw her on campus. He really didn't know what the point of buying these things was. However, Wang Lu was very happy shopping as she shuttled through all kinds of shops. Soon, Zhou became a human-shaped rack with all kinds of bags hanging on his body. They were all things Wang Lu had bought. Does it look good? Wang Lu came out of the fitting room and spun in front of Zhou in a beautiful dress. She posed beautifully and asked Zhou, "Such clothes aren't suitable for training or combat, right?" Zhou said as he looked at the various decorative cloth strips on the clothes. Wang Lu glared at Zhou. I'm happy. I'm happy. This, and this. Give me one of the same color." Therefore, Zhou had many more bags on him. Although with Zhou's stamina, it wouldn't be a problem to have more, he didn't understand the point of buying these. The clothes looked the same, but the colors were different. After shopping for nearly 4 hours and eating 2 sumptuous meals in between, Wang Lu was finally satisfied and returned to school with her bags. Zhou helped deliver the items to Wang Lu's building. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by Wang Lu. "Are you leaving just like that?" Wang Lu said to Zhou. "Haven't I already fulfilled my promise?" Zhou looked at Wang Lu in puzzlement. "The promise has been fulfilled, but the punishment for being late hasn't been decided yet. Don't tell me you want to go back on your word?" Wang Lu's eyes were filled with doubts about Zhou's character. "Of course not. Tell me how to punish you," Zhou said as he spread out his hands. "Actually, it's very simple. The cosmetics I bought can only be judged by the color palette. I can't tell the real effect. Help me try it on." Wang Lu took out a lipstick and said to Zhou with a smile. You want me to try this?" Zhou widened his eyes. "You want to go back on your word?" Wang Lu's doubtful gaze became even more obvious. "No." Zhou gritted his teeth as though the word was squeezed out from between his teeth. "That's good. Sit still and don't move." Wang Lu was immediately delighted. She took out the cosmetics she had just bought and brushed them on Zhou's face. Zhou sat there motionless, feeling as though he was sitting on pins and needles. Every second felt like a year. "You keep angering me, right?" Today, I'll let you know the consequences of angering me." Wang Lu seemed to grow a devil's tail behind her. When it was almost midnight, Jing returned from the equipment room. When she passed by Zhou Wen's building, she subconsciously took a look and saw that the lights weren't on. Just as she was about to return to her building, she heard the door to the building beside her open and a figure walk out. Jing originally didn't think much of it, thinking that it was Wang Lu, but to her surprise, the figure walked to Zhou Wen's building, opened the yard door and walked in. "Zhou Wen?" Jing couldn't help but be taken aback when she saw that the person was Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen also saw Jing, but his relationship with her had never been good. He only nodded slightly as a form of greeting before opening the door and entering his building. He's already so unbridled just because he has some result. Not only does he game every day, but he's also fooling around in the female school's dormitory in the middle of the night. I really don't know what grandfather and mom see in him. And Jing felt extremely unhappy as her good mood instantly vanished. Chapter 249. After returning to his dorm, Zhou Wen entered Dragon Gate Grotto and prepared to grind the lucky tiger. Wang Lu had let Zhou Wen see the magical uses of the luck stat, so he wanted to grind a lucky baby tiger to increase his luck stat. In the future, if he wanted any companion eggs to drop, it would be easier with the lucky baby tiger. The only problem now was that Zhou Wen needed to hatch an epic companion egg at the legendary stage. This was somewhat difficult. Zhou Wen didn't know how Wang Lu had done it. He planned on trying to use his Dao body's primordial energy recovery ability. The baby tiger was relatively weak to begin with, so the primordial energy it needed was likely less. Perhaps he could give it a try. In reality, the tiger was being fought over, but in-game, no one fought with Zhou Wen. After Zhou Wen arrived at Binyang Cave, he quickly found the tiger. Without a word, he summoned his overlord's spear and arrived behind the tiger with ghost steps before stabbing it in the butt. The tiger's reaction wasn't slow either. With a pounce, it dodged the spear and lashed out with its tail like a steel whip. Zhou Wen had already studied it thoroughly. As his body moved horizontally, he stabbed out with his overlord's spear again, stabbing straight at the tiger's slender waist. After a few ups and downs, the overlord's spear finally stabbed the tiger's waist. Ever Victorious came into effect as the spear stabbed into the tiger's skin, causing the tiger to let out a tragic cry. A bloody hole appeared in its waist, damaging its lumbar bones and greatly restricting its movements. It didn't take long for Zhou Wen to finish it off. This was the first time he had killed an epic creature in-game alone. Although it was the weakest type, it gave Zhou Wen a sense of accomplishment. However, it was very likely that the tiger didn't drop a companion egg. Zhou Wen didn't expect the lucky baby tiger to drop in one go, but he could only grind it in passing. He couldn't keep grinding it. This was because there was only one tiger in-game at a time. After Zhou Wen killed it, he had to drip his blood to respawn and let the game dungeon respawn before he could kill the tiger again. It was too wasteful. Zhou Wen would kill the baby tiger every time he dripped his blood to respawn. Then, he would head elsewhere to grind for companion eggs or explore new dungeons. He would wait for the dungeon to respawn before killing the baby tiger again. I wonder if there are any other companion beasts that can add luck? When Zhou Wen had nothing to do, he went online to do some research and discovered that the luck stat was indeed rather rare. Although there were other companion beasts with similar effects, they were like the baby tiger. They were targets that everyone fought over, making them very difficult to obtain. Furthermore, apart from the baby tiger, the other known lucky companion beasts were extremely powerful epic creatures. Their combat strength was many times stronger than the baby tigers. While checking the information, Zhou Wen also saw another companion beast with the opposite attribute of luck. It was a companion beast that was born with bad luck or bad luck. The most famous companion beast in the East District was called Tai Sui. If one carried such a companion beast, One might not even have the chance to buy instant noodles without any seasoning, much less having good luck dropping equipment. Entering dimensional zones was bound to produce demonic beasts. It was a must-have pet that was suicidal. The last epic expert who obtained Tai Sui originally believed that he had obtained a powerful companion beast. He even posted Tai Sui's information on his WeChat moments to flaunt it, but he died in a dimensional zone the next day. Only a ghost would hatch a companion beast like Tai Sui. Zhou Wen carefully read the introduction of Tai Sui and memorized its appearance. He didn't want to accidentally hatch Tai Sui in the future. That would truly be troublesome. Just as he was about to continue grinding dungeons, the school sent a notice to gather all the teachers and students in the field. He had no idea what had happened. When he arrived at the field, he saw that Wang Fei and his classmates were already standing in line. Li Xian was waving at him. Zhou Wen hurriedly walked over and lined up behind Li Xian. He asked, "Li Xian, what happened on campus? Why did all the students suddenly gather?" Such a situation was very rare in Sunset College. Sunset College paid more attention to practical education, so it rarely had activities like a teacher-student meeting. "I don't know either. I was sleeping soundly when I was woken up by the message. I don't know what happened either," Li Xian said as he spread out his hands. Soon, all the teachers and students had gathered. When Zhou Wen saw that there were rows of soldiers on the field, he found it increasingly odd. Although there were troops stationed on campus, they only guarded special places like the school's entrance or dimensional zone entrances. They rarely interacted with the students. There were actually soldiers participating in the teacher-student meeting held by the school. Furthermore, from the uniforms of the soldiers, they seemed different from ordinary soldiers. They didn't seem to be ordinary soldiers on campus. The managing vice-chancellor went on stage to say a few words. Only then did Zhou Wen and the other students realize that this student meeting was to commend and reward the students who had contributed during the Sky Spider riot. Zhou Wen didn't think much of it when he heard that. This was because he, Hui Haifeng, and Zhong Zia hadn't submitted their names. The school hadn't recorded their names, so it had nothing to do with them even if they were rewarded. It wasn't that Zhou Wen and company weren't willing to accept the reward, but that they originally believed that there would only be a few credits. The three of them weren't lacking in credits, so they couldn't be bothered to report it. When the time came, the military would have to verify it, making it especially troublesome. Zhong Zia and Hui Haifeng found it troublesome. Zhou Wen didn't have any desire for credits, so the three of them didn't submit it. If he had known that there would be actual material rewards, Zhou Wen would have submitted his name no matter what. It seemed a little too late for regret now. As Zhou Wen was thinking, he saw a few officers escorted by soldiers to the field. The managing vice-chancellor hurriedly stood up with a group of school leaders to welcome them, inviting the leading officer to the seat of honor. "Wow, it's Overseerin. He's so handsome. I've been in school for 3 years, but this is the first time I've seen the overseer in person. He's even more handsome and imposing than the rumors say." "That's because you don't know much. We Luoyang locals often see the overseer." Instantly, there was a commotion among the students. And Tianzhua was a godlike figure in Luoyang. Many students treated him as their goal and idol as they worked hard on their cultivation. In fact, many outstanding students chose Sunset High School mainly because it was the Infamily's school. And Tianzhua had also graduated from here. Zhou Wen didn't feel anything special when he saw Tianzhua. He treated him as a passerby. And Tianzhua's senses were extremely sharp. Even among the tens of thousands of students, he immediately sensed Zhou Wen's location. However, he didn't look at Zhou Wen as though he didn't exist in his eyes. And Xing smiled and nodded at Zhou Wen in the crowd. However, his smile seemed to have a deeper meaning. Chapter 250. The process of the assembly was very simple. There weren't many leaders speaking. Only Tianzhua said a few words. Although he didn't say much, he was filled with heroism. It made the blood of many students boil with excitement. They wished they could immediately join the army and fight to protect their hometowns. Many girls even had the urge to follow Entienzua to the battlefield. They didn't mind dying for him. Even Zhou had to admit that Entienzua was someone who was born with the charm of a leader. The same words might make others feel awkward and pretentious if it were said by someone else. However, when Entienzua said it, it was very infectious. It had a convincing charm, but Zhou found it odd. Following that, it was time to reward the students who had helped the army in battle and obtained military merit. One by one, the students were called to the stage to receive their awards. Zhou listened for a while, but he didn't hear his name. It wasn't surprising. Entienzua was in a rather good mood today. Although there had been so many troublesome matters that needed his attention recently, he felt much better seeing so many outstanding students at Sunset College. They would be the fresh blood of the army in the future. Entienzua was waiting for the 3 most outstanding students to arrive and was prepared to personally give them medals. Overseer, the rewards for the typical students have already been distributed. There are only 3 students who have made special contributions left. Do you want to announce it personally? And Xing came to Entienzua's side and handed him a script. All right. Entienzua took the script, stood up from his chair, and walked to the front of the stage. This was a very good opportunity to promote the army. Entienzua hoped that more students would have the intention of joining the army in the future. This was one of the reasons why he had personally come to award the awards. I'm very pleased that there are so many outstanding students in my alma mater. While the students from the other colleges are still studying hard, all of you have already grown into the cornerstones of the Federation. You have shed your blood on the battlefield and used your bodies to build a steel wall for our siblings, parents, and elders. You have lived up to the name of Sunset College. Entienzua read the words Xing had written today and felt that something was amiss. This didn't seem to be in Xing's style of writing in the past. This guy is slacking off again. He must have gotten the secretary to write it. Entienzua thought to himself. He glanced at the script and continued speaking. He had the ability to read without looking. With just a casual glance, he could imprint the contents of the entire piece of paper into his mind. There was no need for him to read the script. Among all of you outstanding students, there are 3 students who make me feel proud. They weren't afraid of death or danger. They ventured deep into the spider's lair to destroy the root of the disaster, saving the lives of countless citizens. They used their actions to prove their excellence and their responsibility as men. I'm glad that Sunset College has such students. I'm also proud that there are such men among humans. When I saw them, it was as if I saw the future of the Federation. It was a resplendent and glorious future. Entienzua was almost done with the contents of the first page. He casually flipped to the second page and took a look. The content of the second page was very simple. There were only 3 names. Entienzua continued, "Please invite these 3 outstanding students onto the stage. I want to personally put on medals for them. Everyone, please remember their names. All of us should be proud of them. These 3 students are Hui Haifeng, Zhong Zia, Zhou." When he said the last name, Entienzua glared at Xing. An extremely sharp killing intent shot out like a blade. If looks could kill, Xing would probably have been dismembered. However, Xing lowered his head as though he hadn't seen anything. He was focused on taking note. When Zhou heard his name, he was slightly taken aback. Then, his expression turned extremely odd. The words he had just said sounded a little odd. Furthermore, it had come from Entienzua's mouth. This made Zhou feel even odder. And Jing was stunned when she heard Zhou's name. She couldn't believe that Entienzua would use such words to describe Zhou, much less believe that Zhou was one of the 3 people. The person Overseer mentioned was really Zhou? Don't tell me it's someone with the same name? It wasn't only Jing who didn't believe it. Wang Fei found it even more unbelievable. She couldn't connect the selfish, cold, and gaming-obsessed Zhou Wen to the outstanding student and Tianzhua mentioned. However, Wang Fei quickly realized that he was the only person in school named Zhou Wen. It was impossible for it to be someone with the same name. Li Xian nudged the still-dazed Zhou Wen and said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go on stage to receive the medal. This is a medal, not something meaningless like a medal. Furthermore, it's being personally awarded by Overseerin. I'm so envious. If I were to receive such benefits, I could brag about it for 3 years." Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment. He didn't wish to have anything to do with Tianzhua. Furthermore, what had happened previously made him feel a little uncomfortable standing in front of Tianzhua and asking him to give him a medal. "What are you waiting for?" Wang Fei came over and nudged Zhou Wen. She felt gratified and felt that it was the right decision to send Zhou Wen to Wang Mingyuan. It hadn't been long, but Zhou Wen had already become so responsible. Although she found it a little surreal, this was what she had hoped for Zhou Wen back then. Now that Zhou Wen was on stage to receive the medal, it was also an affirmation of the results of her education. It made Wang Fei feel honored. Seeing that Hui Haifeng and Zhong Zia had already gone on stage in front of everyone, Zhou Wen had no choice but to walk up to the podium. And Sheng walked over with a tray in hand. And Tianzhua expressionlessly helped Hui Haifeng and Zhong Zia wear their medals before rewarding each of them with a companion egg. When it was Zhou Wen's turn, and Tianzhua walked over with a deadpan expression. His eyes met Zhou Wen's for a second before they unconsciously looked to the side like magnets repelling each other. And Tianzhua instantly returned to normal as he put on the medal for Zhou Wen with a deadpan expression. However, his actions were clearly much faster than when he put on Hui Haifeng and Zhong Zia's medals. Let us applaud Hui Haifeng, Zhong Zia, and Zhou Wen for their courage, and responsibility, and Sheng said from the side. Below the stage, the drums immediately sounded like thunder. Zhou Wen and Tianzhua stood together and felt abnormally uncomfortable. Their expressions were extremely stiff, and Sheng held his phone and took a photo of the two of them to record this moment. After Zhou Wen left the venue, he immediately took off the medal and threw it into the chaos space. Then, he felt a little uncomfortable in front of his chest. He patted it with his hand as though he was slapping something off, and Tianzhua got into the car and took off his white glove. He threw them at Sheng and said with a cold expression, "Drive." Chapter 251. Zhou Wen waited for Sheng's notification as he prepared to head to Zhuelu. Although Zhou Wen didn't plan on really entering the dimensional zone and was only searching for the tiny palm symbol, it wasn't peaceful everywhere. Even Luoyang City had been attacked by a breakout creature. No one knew what would happen in a place where almost no humans gathered. The gold-armored beast that Ouyang Lan had given him was hatched. The three-eyed golden warrior was also constantly with him. Once he left Luoyang, Zhou Wen planned on transforming the two companion beasts into their companion forms. One was in golden silk soft armor, while the other was in full-body armor. The companion beast rewarded at the meet was a legendary bronze figurine. It was a legendary companion beast. It didn't have a companion form, but its combat strength was one of the best at the legendary stage. Its life providence, undying soldier, greatly increased the bronze figurine's survivability. It was very suitable for being an explorer and a vanguard. This was what Zhou Wen deserved, so he naturally wouldn't abandon it because of Tianzhua. He also hatched it. However, these were only supplementary. The companion beasts Zhou Wen could really rely on were Truth Listener and Banana Fairy. There was no need to mention Truth Listener's supplementary abilities. It could help Zhou Wen deal with all kinds of supplementary environments. Banana Fairy was now evolving. If she succeeded and advanced to the epic stage, it would definitely be of great help to Zhou Wen. Ghost Bride's effects weren't to be underestimated. Instead, the silver-winged flying ant and mutated lotus flower ant that Zhou Wen often used in the past now appeared somewhat useless. The silver-winged flying ant's flight ability was dispensable to the present Zhou. The mutated lotus flower ant's combat strength was only average. Zhou wanted to fuse the two, but as ants, their compatibility was shockingly low. It was impossible for him to succeed. After tidying up his pets, he took another careful look. He was surprised to discover that the sky spider youngling he had just obtained was surprisingly compatible with the silver-winged flying ant. Its compatibility was more than 80%. Without any hesitation, Zhou chose to fuse the two. The fusion rate of more than 80% was indeed true. The fusion succeeded on the first try. As the two had already hatched, there was no problem of primary or secondary. After the fusion, the new appearance left Zhou slightly taken aback. After the fusion, the companion beast looked like the sky spider was the main one. Its body still maintained the sky spider's snow-white spider body, but it had 4 silver wings on its back and a stinger on its tail. It looked very beautiful as it was wrapped in silver like a silver-white snow toy. Silver-winged heavenly spider youngling, legendary youngling, life providence, king of the sky strength, 19 speed, 20 constitution, 19 essence energy, 20 innate skills. Silver wing flash, magic needle, sky spider silk, sky spider blood poison. Companion form, sky spider silver silk glove. Zhou was somewhat surprised. The fusion could be said to be an unprecedented success. Not only had his stats increased, but he had also inherited all the talent skills of the silver-winged flying ant and sky spider youngling. Furthermore, his life providence had changed. In the past, the sky spider youngling was the son of the sky, while the silver-winged flying ant was the king of low altitude. Now that the two had fused, it had become the king of the sky. Zhou took a look. Now, the life providence augmented his flying ability. It wasn't like the past where it was only powerful when flying at low altitude. What was even more precious was that the silver-winged sky spider was still a youngling. There was still room for growth in the future. It would definitely advance to the epic stage in the future, but it was unknown how long it would take to feed it to advance to the epic stage. After summoning the silver-winged sky spider in its companion form, a translucent silver-threaded glove immediately appeared on Zhou's left hand. The glove clung tightly to his skin, almost as light as a feather. It was difficult to sense its existence, as though it had an additional layer of skin. Zhou tested the glove's ability and realized that it was rather interesting. Apart from having good defense, the sky spider's silver silk glove also had a form of adhesion. As long as Zhou wanted to, the sky spider silver silk glove could stick to anything. Furthermore, if Zhou didn't automatically separate it, it would be very difficult to pull it away. What an interesting companion armament. If I use it well, it might be of great use in the future. Zhou put away the sky spider glove. After tidying up his armor, Zhou grinded the dungeon again. To Zhou's pleasant surprise, he finally gathered the skills of the 3 mutated demonized generals and dropped the astral fist he had always wanted. He directly learned the astral fist and had all 3 demonized general skills on him. However, Zhou didn't feel any qualitative changes in his strength. The might of the 3 demonized general skills was no different from that of a typical demonized general. From the looks of it, what the Wu siblings said was indeed a lie. Gathering 3 demonized general skills isn't impressive. How can I catch the arrow shot from Tiger Cage Pass? Although he had long received confirmation from his mutated demonized general, he still couldn't help but feel disappointed. However, with this in mind, Zhou's heart suddenly stirred. If I use 3 demonized general skills at the same time, will there be any changes? But I only have 2 hands. One uses astral slash blade, and the other uses astral suction palm. How can I use astral fist with my other hand? After Zhou carefully sensed the information of astral fist, his expression turned odd. Although astral fist was called a fist, it was a primordial energy skill that condensed all the strength in one's body. When using Astral Fist, one's body would produce an effect similar to Dominant's body. There was no need to really punch. In that case, I can try using all 3 skills at once. Zhou attempted to use 3 demonized skills at the same time in-game, but he encountered difficulties again. The 3 demonized skills were primordial energy skills that had no rank. When used, the amount of primordial energy determined their strength. Basically, Zhou used all his primordial energy at once to maximize the might of Astral/Blade. Now that he was using the 3 skills at the same time, it was naturally impossible for him to use his primordial energy in such a manner. All he could do was distribute the 3 primordial energy equally to the 3 primordial energy skills. When Zhou used the 3 primordial energy skills together, a strange change occurred in his body. The 3 primordial energy skills resonated as they attracted and repelled each other, forming a very subtle balance. It made the blood-colored avatar's body emit a strange sanguine glow, as though its entire body was enveloped by a sanguine glow. If one took a closer look, they would discover that the sanguine glow seemed to rapidly revolve around the blood-colored avatar's body. Zhou didn't know how to use this strength, so all he could do was attempt to slash forward. Immediately, a wheel of light that resembled a blood sun flew out from his body and slashed at the battlefield in front of him, directly mincing an ancient war chariot into pieces. Yes, it wasn't a slash, but a mincing. It was as though the war chariot had been stuffed into a meat grinder and was instantly minced into pieces. What terrifying strength! Zhou looked at his palm and couldn't help but be alarmed. Chapter 252. Comprehended Combined Skill, Demonic Astral Wheel. A notification appeared on the phone screen. Then, Zhou saw that in the blood-colored avatar's skill column, there was indeed an additional Demonic Astral Wheel skill. As for the 3 demon general skills from before, they had vanished. Soon, Zhou understood that the Demonic Astral Wheel had the effects of 3 demon general skills at the same time. It integrated offensive and defensive skills into one, but it was more powerful than any of the original skills. Why can I comprehend the Demonic Astral Wheel while the mutated Demonized General has 3 skills at the same time, but the Demonic Astral Wheel skill doesn't appear? Could it be that it needs to use 3 skills at the same time to comprehend it? Zhou summoned the mutated Demonized General and attempted to order it to use the 3 skills at the same time. However, the mutated Demonized General's control over primordial energy was clearly not as strong as Zhou. It was difficult for it to use 3 primordial energy skills at the same time, preventing it from achieving a balance of microseconds. From the looks of it, it won't be easy to get the Demonized General to comprehend the Demonic Astral Wheel. Zhou could only give up for now and slowly practice it in the future. Now, Zhou only wanted to try and see if the Demonic Astral Wheel could withstand the arrow shot from Tiger Cage Pass. In fact, even if Zhou didn't use the Demonic Astral Wheel, he could still dodge the arrow with Ghost Step. It was just that he didn't rush into Tiger Cage Pass. The blood-colored avatar came in front of Tiger Cage Pass and directly crossed the line. Indeed, like before, an arrow tore through the air and instantly crossed the battlefield, shooting in front of the blood-colored avatar. Zhou didn't get the blood-colored avatar to retreat. Instead, he used the Demonic Astral Wheel. The sanguine beam that spun like a wheel collided with the arrow's tip. Zhou immediately saw a strange scene. The Demonic Astral Wheel was spinning, and so was the arrow. However, the two were spinning in different directions. The Demonic Astral Wheel spun forward like a wheel, while the arrow spun like an electric drill. At the instant the two collided, the arrow changed direction and shot into the ground in front of the blood-colored avatar. As for the Demonic Astral Wheel, it didn't expend much of its power. Zhou immediately understood why the Wu siblings said that the 3 skills combined could crack the arrow. The arrow's power was very similar to that of the 3 skills combined. When the 2 powers were used at the same time, the arrow would automatically deviate from its trajectory, preventing it from causing any damage to Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen's heart stirred as he didn't slash out the demonic astral wheel. Instead, he let the demonic astral wheel spin around him like a defensive barrier as he continued walking towards Tiger Cage Pass. Another arrow shot out from Tiger Cage Pass. However, when the arrow touched the demonic astral wheel, it automatically deviated and shot into the ground, blasting a huge crater in the ground. Zhou Wen was delighted. With the demonic astral wheel protecting him, he quickly rushed to Tiger Cage Pass. Boom! 10,000 arrows shot out from Hulao Pass. The arrows fell like dark clouds, densely packed like a torrential rain. However, the arrows that landed on Zhou Wen deviated from their trajectories due to the demonic astral wheel. They landed beside Zhou Wen without damaging a corner of his clothes. Just as Zhou Wen was feeling smug, he saw the demonic astral wheel on the blood-colored avatar suddenly vanish. In the next second, the blood-colored avatar was pierced by thousands of arrows and killed on the spot. The phone screen went black. I forgot that the demonic astral wheel expends too much essence energy. Even if I awaken my Dao body, I won't be able to maintain it forever. Zhou Wen didn't feel discouraged. The demonic astral wheel was already strong enough. All he lacked was essence energy. In the future, when he advanced to the epic stage and his essence energy increased, the demonic astral wheel would only become stronger. However, it's still a little troublesome to storm Tiger Cage Pass now. I wonder what kind of people are inside. The legendary Tiger Cage Pass does have a very famous general. Don't tell me he's the one shooting at the city gate? Zhou Wen thought. He really wanted to see who the person inside Tiger Cage Pass was. Zhou Wen dripped his blood to revive and entered the game again. However, he first went to Binyang Cave to grind the tiger before going elsewhere to grind again. Only then did he arrive outside Tiger Cage Pass. He switched his essence energy art to Dao body. This was the essence energy art that Zhou Wen often used. It was just too useful to quickly recover his essence energy. Zhou Wen only complained that it wasn't fast enough. Otherwise, he could use all sorts of essence energy skills infinitely. If I advance to the epic stage, I wonder if the Dao body can also condense a life soul. If the Dao body also has a life soul, I might really be able to recover my essence energy infinitely. Zhou Wen only fantasized inwardly. The three-eyed golden warrior transformed into a golden silk soft armor and wore it on the blood-colored avatar. The gold-armored beast transformed into a steel armor that wrapped around the golden silk soft armor. Then, Zhou Wen controlled the blood-colored avatar to charge towards Tiger Cage Pass. An arrow came like the wind as the blood-colored avatar activated the demonic astral wheel to block the arrow. The demonic astral wheel was retracted the moment it was activated, conserving essence energy as much as possible. Just like before, after the blood-colored avatar closed the distance between them, the rain of arrows rained down once again like a storm. However, the rain of arrows wasn't as terrifying as the previous arrow. Most of the arrows were only at the ordinary legendary stage. Only one of the arrows could instantly kill a legendary. However, with so many legendary arrows, it was impossible for ordinary legendary creatures to withstand them. Zhou Wen didn't wish to test them with his body. At the instant the rain of arrows landed, the blood-colored avatar's figure suddenly vanished. When it appeared again, it was already behind the rain of arrows and continued heading for Tiger Cage Pass. As he approached the city walls of Tiger Cage Pass, Zhou Wen could roughly see that there were many guards on the city walls. Unlike the defeated soldiers outside Tiger Cage Pass, these soldiers were dressed in bright armor. They looked majestic and mighty, and it was obvious at a glance that they were extraordinary. And on the steps of the city gate sat a majestic and domineering general in black armor. There was wine on the table in front of him, and beside him was a halberd. He held a longbow in his hand. The person who shot the arrow was undoubtedly him. Seeing that Zhou Wen had already rushed to the entrance of Tiger Cage Pass and was about to leap up the city gate, the black-armored general threw the wine cup in his hand and suddenly stood up. He grabbed the halberd beside him and stabbed it at the blood-colored avatar that was charging at him from midair. Zhou saw that the black flames on the black-armored general's body seemed to transform into a black ferocious beast shadow. The shadow was like a lion or tiger, but it had 3 heads. It was like a 3-headed hellhound from hell. In the next second, a terrifying force erupted from the halberd, shattering the blood-colored avatar's demonic astral wheel and 2 layers of armor. It killed the blood-colored avatar on the spot, causing it to explode into a bloody mist. Epic stage. Zhou wasn't surprised. He didn't choose to use ghost steps to dodge and instead forcefully received the strike. He wanted to know how strong the black-armored general was. As expected, a top epic creature wasn't weaker than the golden flying ant. It might even be stronger. Chapter 253. And Xing came to Tianzuo's office and said, "Overseer, the people you invited have arrived. Do you want them to immediately set off for Zhuolu County? Let them rest in the guest hall first. When I'm done with the matters at hand, we'll head to Zhuolu together," Tianzuo said. "Overseer, are you really going to Zhuolu personally?" And Xing asked seriously. "My mother is there. If I don't go, how can I be at ease?" And Tianzuo said, "Overseer, please reconsider. Even if you go, Madam won't change her mind because of your request. When the time comes, we won't be able to invite Madam back. Without you at Chess Mountain, there's no way to resolve any problems. When the time comes, the foundation that the Yin family has built over the years and the Luoyang city that you swore to protect will be destroyed. If that happens, Miss Luo won't be happy if she finds out," Xing said. And Tianzuo had a strange look in his eyes when he heard the words, Miss Luo. "However," he said coldly, "don't bring up little Luo. It won't work this time. Filial piety is the most important of all virtues. My mother is in such a dangerous place and her life could be in danger at any time. How can I just sit at home? Then let me ask you. If you go, will Madam be able to return?" Xing asked. "No, but I can accompany her into the ancient battlefield," Tianzuo said. "You can indeed do that, but what about Luoyang? Luoyang cannot be without a leader for a single day. This place cannot do without you. Moreover, even if you accompany Madam into the ancient battlefield, she will still be in danger, right? You can't guarantee that she's safe and sound," Xing said. "If I don't go, she'll be in more danger." And Tianzuo was very stubborn. "The safest way is to persuade Madam back." "Actually, there's a way to persuade Madam back," Xing said with narrowed eyes. "How can I persuade him? Are you going to persuade him?" And Tianzuo curled his lips. He knew Ouyang Lan's personality very well. Since she had decided to go, no one could persuade her to come back. "Of course not, but there's someone who can," Xing said. "Who? Uncle Feng? He probably can't either. If he could, my mom wouldn't have gone to Zhuolu." And Tianzuo shook his head slightly. It was impossible for Ouyang Lan to abandon her thoughts and principles for Zhou Lingfeng. Part of the reason why she chose Zhou Lingfeng was that he was a man who respected her. "Uncle Feng naturally can't do it, but there's someone who can," Xing said confidently. "Who else?" And Tianzuo frowned slightly, but he couldn't figure out who Xing was referring to. "Overseer, how can you forget? There's still Zhou. Madam got Zhou to take the risk in Njing's place in the Holy Land. Although Zhou returned safely and even obtained benefits, he still offended the 6 families. With Madam's personality, she definitely felt that she owed Zhou. Furthermore, with Zhou relationship with the former principal, Madam might change her mind if Zhou was willing to persuade her. "I'll say something you won't like to hear. Zhou is more useful than you and Miss Jing," Xing said. "No, we don't need an outsider like him to intervene in the affairs of the Yin family. Besides, he's only a legendary student. He will only cause trouble if he goes to a place like Zhuolu. Who knows what kind of trouble he will cause?" and Tianzhua directly rejected the idea. I'm afraid to old Mr. Ouyang, you are the outsider. He treats Zhouwen better than you. Zhouwen took the initiative to go to Zhuolu this time. I think it's quite appropriate to get him to persuade Madam. It's more useful than you going, Anxing said. And Tianzhua frowned and thought for a moment before saying, watch him well. Don't let him cause any trouble. Also, if he wants to go, it has nothing to do with our family. He can't blame anyone if he dies there. Overseer, don't worry. I'll watch him and not let him cause any trouble, Anxing hurriedly said. Zhouwen received Anxing's notice that he would be setting off for Zhuolu tomorrow, so he had no choice but to bid farewell to Wang Mingyuan overnight. You're going to Zhuolu? Wang Mingyuan said with a slight frown. Yes, the former principal treats me like family. If I don't go, I won't be able to feel at ease, Zhouwen said. Zhuolu is an inauspicious place. It's fine if you don't enter, but if you do, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for you to escape unscathed, Wang Mingyuan said after some thought. I know my strength is limited, so I'll only wait outside. I won't enter the dimensional zone, Zhouwen said. Wang Mingyuan only smiled when he heard that. He reached out and patted Zhouwen on the head. Although you haven't been with me for long, I still know your personality. If you don't want to do something, why would you travel so far? Zhouwen opened his mouth, wanting to defend himself, but Wang Mingyuan waved his hand, indicating that he didn't need to say anything. Wait a moment. As Wang Mingyuan spoke, he walked to his desk, took a pen and paper, and wrote a few words. Then, he folded the paper into a small square and placed it into a matchbox-sized metal box. Take this. If you are really trapped in that inauspicious place, open the box and read the words on it. It might be of help to your situation, Wang Mingyuan said as he stuffed the small metal box into Zhouwen's hand. Thank you, teacher. Although Zhouwen felt that it was useless, he still respectfully received it with both hands and bowed to thank him. How many times have I told you that there aren't so many rules when you're with me? Look at Zia taking things from me. When has he ever thanked me? Wang Mingyuan said with a smile. My personality is different from his, but the respect I have for you is the same, teacher, Zhouwen said with a shake of his head. He really couldn't learn from Zhongzia. However, Zhouwen did have an indescribable sense of closeness towards Wang Mingyuan. It was just like his fate with the former principal. Even someone as cold as Zhouwen couldn't help but get close to Wang Mingyuan. Wang Mingyuan didn't mind. He took a book from the desk and handed it to Zhouwen. You should have a lot of free time on the way there. You can't fall behind on your homework. Take this book and read it. Tell me your understanding and views when you return. Zhouwen took the book and agreed. Wang Mingyuan didn't keep him any longer and got him to pack his things. Zhouwen said a few more words to Jiang Yan, who was reading. Seeing that Zhongzia and Hui Haifeng weren't around and that they probably wouldn't be back at this late hour, he bade farewell and left. After informing Li Xian and company, he entrusted the antelope to Wang Lu to take care of. Zhouwen went to the supermarket again and bought a large amount of food and water. He placed them in the chaos space for emergencies. The metal box that Wang Mingyuan had given him was also placed in the chaos space by Zhouwen. He didn't plan on entering the dimensional space, so he definitely wouldn't need it. He picked up the book Wang Mingyuan had given him and flipped through it. He realized that it wasn't a palm technique, but a book named Mind Contemplation. It was filled with Wang Mingyuan's experiences, but they weren't experiences from experiments. Instead, they were experiences from various cultivation realms. Although the book didn't have any cultivation methods or techniques, Zhouwen read it with relish as though he had obtained a treasure. Chapter 254. Anxing came to fetch Zhouwen. There were more than 10 people with him, but apart from Zhouwen, they were basically all epic experts. Although most of them were older than Anxing, they were respectful to him and didn't dare to slight him in the slightest. However, most of them didn't look like soldiers. There were men and women, young and old. They looked very strange, and it was unknown where they came from. They weren't interested in Zhou, and Zhou didn't want to know who they were. Therefore, he enjoyed the peace and played games in the car. Tiger Cage Pass was guarded by the black-armored general, so Zhou couldn't rush in. However, he recalled what the Wu siblings had said. There seemed to be a secret passageway that could enter Tiger Cage City, but he couldn't find it despite searching for it in-game many times. Could it be that there's no secret passageway in-game? Or is there some mechanism to the secret passageway? Zhou was momentarily unable to guess. Lad, is the game fun? Sitting opposite Zhou was a man with white hair, but he looked like a middle-aged man. He looked at Zhou and asked. They were riding in a large military truck that had extremely strong off-road capabilities. However, it was a little shaky, so it wasn't too cramped for more than 10 people to sit in. It's fun, Zhou answered casually. It's very rare to see young people like you who like to play games these days. Back when I was your age, everyone played games. There were all sorts of gaming competitions. After the dimensional storms, not many people play anymore. How nostalgic, the man said. Have you experienced the dimensional storms? Zhou looked at the man in surprise. From the looks of it, he didn't look that old. Before the man could say a word, a middle-aged man beside him curled his lips and said, You don't even know Lord Alcohol's name. Young man, you still have a lot to learn. Take your time. However, Lord Alcohol smiled and said, I was originally ranked 9th in my family. People used to call me Old Nine, but as I grew older and liked to drink, I gradually became Lord Alcohol. It's just a nickname. Young man, how should I address you? My name is Zhou, Zhou answered. These people clearly didn't know his origins. They only knew that he had been brought here by Ensheng. Zhou. Lord Alcohol repeated it twice as though he was recalling the information related to this name. Unfortunately, he didn't gain anything. Hence, he said, Are you going to the ancient battlefield in Zhuolu this time? I'm still a student. How can I have the ability to go to such a place? Zhou said. Oh, then why are you going to Zhuolu? The middle-aged man pressed. Learning to broaden my horizons, Zhou answered. He wasn't familiar with these people, so he was just responding casually. Traveling 10,000 miles isn't as good as reading 10,000 books, especially in this era. It's not bad for young people to come out and broaden their horizons, Lord Alcohol said with a smile. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to learn anything and will lose my life in the end, a woman in her 30s who looked very cold suddenly said. That's right. A place like Zhuolu isn't a place you can casually visit. Even the Federation reconnaissance team is trapped inside. It's a land of death with a high chance of survival. Lord Alcohol, how confident are you this time? The middle-aged man wasn't interested in Zhou. After saying a few words, he directed the topic at Lord Alcohol. It's hard to say. The situation in the ancient battlefield isn't clear. I can't tell anything with the little information I have. I'll take a look when I get there, Lord Alcohol said indifferently. While they were talking, the truck suddenly came to a halt. What happened? Lord Alcohol looked at the driver's seat. Something's blocking the way. And Sheng, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, had already opened the door and jumped out. Lord Alcohol and the others also came out of the trunk. Indeed, they saw that the road ahead was blocked by something, but it wasn't something like a rock. Instead, a plant's vines had grown onto the road and wrapped around the trees on both sides of the road, blocking the road. Everyone could see that the vine seemed a little strange. It was a purple vine with dark green leaves, and there were a few fruits on it. However, the fruits were somewhat strange. They didn't look like ordinary fruits. They looked like purple copper bells hanging on the vines. The bells weren't the round kind, but they looked like small copper bells. When the wind blew, the purple copper bells swayed slightly on the vines and actually made a metallic clanking sound. However, everyone could clearly see that the bells were clearly growing on the vines. How could they be made of metal? Adjutant N, shall I lead the way? a muscular middle-aged man walked out and said to Anshing, "Be careful." Anshing nodded slightly. The middle-aged man responded and summoned an elephant-like dimensional creature. He made the elephant charge at the vines. The elephant's body burned with flames as it charged at the vines like a meteor. With the flaming elephant's size and speed, it looked like it would be easy for it to smash through the vines. Furthermore, it had terrifying flames on its body. However, when the flaming elephant slammed into the vines, it seemed to have fallen into a swamp. The vines wrapped around its body and it couldn't move an inch. It unleashed its strength, hoping to use flames to burn the vines that wrapped around its body. The flames spread across the vines and soon, the entire vine was set ablaze. However, the vines weren't burned. Instead, the flaming elephant's body shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye as though it had been sucked dry by a vampire. Bam! In just a short while, the flaming elephant's body was sucked out of shape as it collapsed and turned to ashes. Everyone's faces revealed solemn expressions. The muscular man was somewhat moved as well. Although the flaming elephant was only a legendary companion beast that he had used to scout the way, it had been easily killed by the vines. The vines were probably not simple. The flames on the vines gradually extinguished. Just as the muscular man was about to take action again, he saw the bells suddenly shake violently. In the next second, a few purple copper bells spewed out a large amount of flames, sweeping towards the group of people in an overwhelming manner. The cold woman summoned a white fox. The fox opened its mouth and spat out a cloud of cold white mist towards the flames. Immediately, the flames were extinguished. The white mist continued to float towards the vines. Soon, the cold fog enveloped the vines, causing frost to appear on them as though they had been frozen. Snow Fox indeed lives up to its reputation, the muscular man praised. But just as he finished speaking, he saw the frost on the vines quickly melt, and the few purple copper bells shook a few times and actually spat out a large amount of white fog, which swept towards the group. Chapter 255. As a result, everyone's expressions changed. It was one thing for the legendary flaming elephant to suffer a backlash after being absorbed by the vine, but the snow fox was an epic creature. The frost mist it spewed out could freeze an epic creature. It was fine if the vine wasn't affected, but it could still spew out frost mist. Furthermore, the frost mist it spewed out was more than what the snow fox spewed out. This was a little terrifying. The woman frowned slightly and made the snow fox spew out frost mist again. It intertwined with the white mist spewed out by the bell. The white mist on both sides dissipated at the same time, and no one gained the upper hand. The woman wanted to continue, but she heard Lord Alcohol say, "Director Liu, don't be in a rush to take action. Let me take a look first." Lu Ning nodded slightly and unsummoned the snow fox before retreating to the side. The stocky man looked at Lord Alcohol and asked, "Lord Alcohol, do you know what this is?" Everyone looked at Lord Alcohol. They also wanted to know what the vine was. Lord Alcohol sized up the vine and said, "I saw a similar vine in Changbai Mountain in the past. However, that vine didn't have bells on it, but 3 flying sabers. At that time, the people who went together also wanted to cut off the vines, but the knife light on the flying daggers killed several people. Later, after thinking of many ways, we finally managed to remove the flying daggers from the vines." With that said, Lord Alcohol paused for a moment as his gaze swept across everyone's faces. Then, he continued, "Who knew that those flying sabers were actually strange companion beasts? Whoever plucked the flying sabers would automatically recognize them as their owner and land on them. Back then, 3 people obtained the flying sabers and were very happy. The flying sabers are extremely powerful. They are considered top-notch combat strength among epic creatures. They are indeed extraordinary. I think this vine is somewhat similar to the one on Changbai Mountain, but it's not exactly the same. Perhaps the two have something in common." When everyone heard Lord Alcohol say that, their eyes burned with passion as they looked at the bell. They had already seen the bell's might. If it could really become their companion beast, it would undoubtedly be a powerful boost. Lord Alcohol, how did you remove the flying sabers back then? Zhao Xian hurriedly asked. Lord Alcohol recalled and said, back then, that vine was the same as this one. It was also impervious to fire and water, and it was difficult to cut through. It was also protected by a flying knife's saber beam. It was truly troublesome. Everyone looked at Lord Alcohol, hoping that he would quickly say something so that they could try using it on the bells. To his surprise, Lord Alcohol shook his head and said, I don't know how they managed to remove the flying knives in the end. Lord Alcohol, are you kidding us? Weren't you at the scene? How could I not know? Zhao Xian said in disbelief. Lord Alcohol said with a bitter smile, I was indeed present back then. I also saw how they plucked the flying sabers, but I still didn't understand how they plucked them. There's actually such a thing? Who was the person who picked up the dagger? How did you pick the flying daggers? Lu Ning was a little curious and couldn't help but ask. Zhou was also very curious. The places he had been to were limited, and his knowledge was very limited. To be able to hear such secrets might be of help to him in the future. Lord Alcohol said, You should have heard of the 3 people who plucked the flying daggers. Even if you haven't seen them before, you must know them. One of them is called Jing Daoxian. Devil Jing Daoxian? Everyone trembled when they heard that. Jing Daoxian's name had shocked the Federation for decades. Few people who knew of his deeds weren't afraid of him. Lord Alcohol continued, I really don't know how Jing Daoxian plucked the flying sabers. When the others approached the vine, they were killed by the saber beams of the flying sabers. However, Jing Daoxian actually walked in front of the vine and reached out to pluck one of the flying sabers. The flying sabers didn't react at all. I watched helplessly as he plucked them off, but I don't know how he did it. Lord Alcohol's words sounded fantastical, but no one felt that there was anything wrong with it. It was as though no matter how bizarre something was, it wasn't surprising for Jing Daoxian. Lord Alcohol, who are the other 2 people who plucked the flying sabers? And Xing seemed to be interested as he asked Lord Alcohol. The other 2. One of them is Zhang Daotian, and the other is Wan Yiqi. When Lord Alcohol said these 2 names, everyone apart from Zhou gaped their mouths. Impossible. Why would the leader of the 6 heroes, Zhang Daotian, and his wife, Wan Yiqi, be together with that devil Jing Daoxian? Aren't they sworn enemies? Why would they go to Changbai Mountain together and pluck the flying sabers together? Zhao Xian directly voiced out the doubts on his mind. This was also the question on the minds of the others. Only then did Zhou recall that the strongest of the 6 heroes was Zhang Daotian. In private, he even had the title of Hero King. However, the Zhang family didn't send anyone to participate in the Battle of the Holy Land. This wasn't because the Zhang family had declined, but because the Zhang family disdained vying for those qualifications. The forum where Zhou had posted the strategy was managed by the Zhang family. Even the other 5 families found it difficult to obtain information from the Zhang family. Also, most of the League's economic and monetary system was controlled by the Zhang family. Although the Zhang family didn't have military power, its influence on the Senate and the League could be said to be the strongest among the 6 families. Zhou had heard of Zhang Daotian's story. Basically, everyone in the League knew of it. Back then, Jing Daoxian stormed the League building and slaughtered countless League experts. Almost no one could match him. In the end, it was Zhang Daotian who defeated him. Only then did Jing Daoxian escape with injuries, preventing him from wiping out the upper echelons of the League building. Back then, they were still young. Jing Daoxian wasn't a famous devil, and Zhang Daotian wasn't the Hero King. Wan Yiqi hadn't married Zhang Daotian either, Lord Alcohol said with a smile. I see. Then, how did Zhang Daotian and Wan Yiqi pluck the flying saber? Lu Ning asked curiously. Lord Alcohol chuckled. Zhang Daotian and Jing Daoxian did the same. they walked straight over and plucked the flying saber. They weren't attacked by it at all. As for Wanichi, you might not believe the way she plucked the flying saber. Could it be that she bit it off with her mouth? Zhao Xian joked. Lord Alcohol glanced at Zhao Xian and said indifferently, "If Jing Daoxian heard what you said, he would probably be dead." Zhao Xian's heart chilled as he forced a smile. Even if he's angry, it's Zhang Daotian's anger. It has nothing to do with Jing Daoxian, right? Lord Alcohol ignored Zhao Xian and continued, "Back then, Wanichi was known as the most beautiful woman in the 7 continents. She was a well-deserved beauty. Even the flying saber fell for her. Before she even walked in front of the flying saber automatically landed in her hand." Everyone found it unbelievable when they heard that. They felt that Lord Alcohol was bragging. No matter how beautiful a woman was, it was impossible for her to affect a dimensional creature. Furthermore, it was a flying saber. How could it understand human aesthetics? Chapter 256. Although Lord Alcohol's story was very interesting, everyone still didn't know how to pluck the purple bronze bell from the vine. Should they just walk over and pluck it like Lord Alcohol had said? Not only did Zhou Wen find it unreliable, but Zhao Xian, Lu Ning, and company also found it unreliable. The story Lord Alcohol told could only be treated as a story. It was impossible for them to really do it. No one would use their lives to verify the authenticity of the story. Seeing that Lord Alcohol couldn't come up with a solution, Zhao Xian summoned a long saber and slashed out saber beams in a bid to slice off the vines. However, when the saber beams struck the vines were fine, but the saber beams shattered. As the bells shook, they sucked in the shattered saber beams. Soon, they spewed out again. However, when they spewed out again, the saber beams poured out like a torrential storm. Everyone hurriedly used their abilities to block the saber beams that filled the sky. And Xing stood in front of Zhou Wen and brandished his dagger a few times, shattering the saber beams that flew over. Although no one was injured, everyone's hearts were shrouded in a shadow. The vines and bells were so demonic. Not only could they devour all kinds of powers, but the power they spat out was even stronger than the original power. It was truly terrifying. For a moment, no one dared to attack the vines again. They still had stronger powers to use, but if the power was absorbed by the vines and spewed back, they weren't confident that they could withstand it. Zhou Wen sized up the vines from behind and took a picture of them with his phone. Although a living dimensional creature couldn't be photographed on a phone, Zhou Wen wanted to see if he could see its information. The phone screen locked onto the vines and some information about the vines appeared. Yin-Yang Purple Air Bell Companion Egg, Legendary Life Providence, Devouring Mountains and Rivers Life Soul, Purple Light Bell Strength, 38 Speed, 0 Constitution, 39 Primordial Energy, 40 Talent Skill, Yin-Yang Reversal Companion Form. Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback when he saw this. This was clearly the stats of one of the purple air bells. He scanned the other bells and realized that apart from the 4 basic attributes, everything else was the same. There was basically no difference between the 4 bells. It's really a companion egg. However, does plucking it really count as hatching? Zhou Wen wasn't sure. He used his phone to take a picture of the entire wisteria, but he couldn't see its stats. The mysterious phone seemed to only be able to take pictures of companion eggs and not living dimensional creatures. There was nothing Zhou Wen could do about it. After studying the life providences, life souls, and talent skills of the 4 bells, Zhou Wen had an unexpected harvest. The aura engulfing rivers made the purple air bell unafraid of primordial energy skills. No matter how powerful a primordial energy skill was, it was useless when it landed on it. Instead, it would absorb it. As for the yin-yang reversal, it could multiply the absorbed essence energy. Apart from being unable to move, the yin-yang purple air bell was indeed an extremely powerful companion beast. However, plant-type companion beasts were somewhat strange. Even if they didn't hatch, they could still use their abilities. Furthermore, as long as they were plucked, there was no need to use essence energy to hatch them even if they had already hatched. However, the yin-yang purple air bell also had its weakness. It wasn't afraid of primordial energy skills, but it was afraid of physical attack. It was completely opposite of Ghost Bride's characteristic. Furthermore, it didn't have any destructive power. It had to absorb powers from the outside world to counterattack. It was a very passive companion beast. In that case, as long as I walk over and don't use any primordial energy skills to attack it, I should be able to pluck it? Zhou felt that it was feasible. The only thing he was worried about was the purple vine. The bell itself didn't have any offensive capabilities, but the purple vine wasn't necessarily the same. It had easily wrapped around the flaming elephant. Lord Alcohol and company were still discussing. It wasn't that they were lacking in intelligence, but that they had never seen the yin-yang purple air bell before. They didn't know what abilities it had. It was like an ancient person who had just come into contact with a smartphone. Without anyone to teach them or a user manual, it was impossible for them to know how to turn it on and use it. However, Zhou was different. He had the manual for the purple air bell and knew how to restrain it. It was a rare opportunity. The 4 purple air bells would be of great use in the future, but Zhou didn't wish to take the risk himself. Therefore, after some thought, he said to Xing, "Ah Xing, I've thought of a way to pluck the bell. Pluck all 4 bells and give me 2 when the time comes. How about that?" Zhou spoke very softly, but Lord Alcohol and company were epic experts. Their ears were sharp, so they heard Zhou. Zhao Xian looked at Zhou and said, "This isn't a game. Don't make wild guesses and harm Adjutant." And Lord Alcohol also said, "Zhou, tell us what method you have first. Let us study it. If it's really valuable, you naturally won't be left out after plucking the bell." Some people felt that Zhou was young and delusional, while others hoped that Zhou would voice out his thoughts. Everyone had their own thoughts. "Young Master One, tell me what to do. I'll pluck the bell. We'll do as you say. We'll take 2 each." And Xing seemed to trust Zhou without any doubts. Zhou hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should voice his thoughts in front of Lord Alcohol and company. "Young Master One, feel free to say it. Even if others use your method, the bell will still be given to you after plucking it. No one can covet the bell," and Xing said with a smile. Zhou nodded and handed his bamboo blade to Xing. "Just walk over and slash the bell off. However, be careful not to get entangled by the vines. Don't use primordial energy skills either. Just slash the bell off with the blade." Zhou had seen Xing's abilities and knew that his movement techniques were extremely strange. Even Ghost King didn't have his strange movement technique. With his abilities and flexibility, it was difficult for epic creatures to injure him. "I thought you had some good idea. Aren't you sending Adjutant unto his death?" Zhao Xian turned to look at Xing and said, "Adjutant, don't listen to the young man's nonsense. Let's quickly discuss a way to remove these vines." And Xing pushed the bamboo blade back. Zhou imagined that he didn't believe him either. Just as he was about to explain, Xing pulled out his dagger and walked towards the vines. "Adjutant, are you really going?" Zhao Xian and company were alarmed. And Xing said indifferently, "If young Master One says it'll work, it'll definitely work." With that said, Xing approached the vines. Indeed, the purple vines moved in a bid to entangle Xing, but Xing was too fast. He easily dodged the vine's entanglement and came in front of the bell. The dagger in his hand slashed at the root of a bell. The purple air bell, which had been so mighty, remained motionless. And Xing's dagger sliced off the bell. And Xing reached out to catch the bell. The moment the bell touched his skin, it transformed into a purple gas that entered his body, turning into a tattoo in the shape of a morning glory. Chapter 257. And Xing didn't hesitate any longer. As he dodged the purple vine's attack, he sliced off another purple air bell. However, this time, Anxing didn't take it himself. Instead, he used his dagger to lift the purple air bell up. The purple air bell flew straight for Zhou, who reached out to catch it. The purple air bell transformed into a purple gas that seeped into his skin. Without needing to expend his primordial energy to incubate it, it had already turned into a morning flower-like tattoo that imprinted itself on Zhou body, making him overjoyed. It was very difficult for Zhou to incubate typical epic companion eggs, but the purple air bell was very unique. There was no need to incubate it, allowing Zhou to obtain an epic companion beast. Soon, Anxing picked another bell. Zhou reached out to catch it again and obtained another epic companion beast. Anxing caught the last bell after slicing it off. He had also obtained 2 purple air bells. The 4 purple air bells were all sliced off. The purple vine suddenly froze as though it had lost its soul. A gust of wind blew, and the purple vine turned into dust that scattered into the sky. A perfectly fine purple vine was gone just like that. Zhao Xian and company looked at Zhou strangely. Anxing got everyone to return to the car and continue on their way. "Lad, how did you tell that the bells are afraid of physical attacks?" Lord Alcohol asked while sitting in the car. The others also looked at Zhou. It wasn't easy to figure out the crux of the problem in such a short period of time. "I was inspired by your story, Lord Alcohol," Zhou said. "My story?" Lord Alcohol was somewhat surprised. Zhou continued, "Yes, your story. Didn't you say that the flying knives didn't harm Jing Daoxian and company? I was thinking that there must be a reason why they didn't harm Jing Daoxian and company. Although I didn't think of the reason, I thought of the problem with these bells. They will only counterattack when we attack, and they don't have the consciousness to attack first. Moreover, when they counterattack, they also use our strength. I wondered if there was a reason why they don't hurt people, so I thought that maybe they don't have the ability to attack people first, so I asked Adjutant and to give it a try. I didn't expect him to succeed." A young man's thoughts are indeed lively. No wonder Adjutant and treats you differently. "I'm really old. Even if I thought of this, I wouldn't dare to do it," Lord Alcohol praised. "It's just sheer luck. He's letting Adjutant and take the risk based on a guess. Even if he guessed correctly, wouldn't he be harming Adjutant and if he guessed wrongly?" Zhao Xian said with a twitch of his lips. Clearly, he disapproved of Zhou actions. Zhou didn't refute Zhao Xian and Lord Alcohol because they were right. If it was just a guess, it was indeed very irresponsible of Zhou to let Anxing take such a risk. However, Zhou wasn't guessing. He had actually seen it and knew that Anxing would be fine. That was why he had let him go. However, there was no need for Zhou to explain this to others. On the way, they encountered quite a number of problems. However, these people were all experts at the epic stage. Each of them had their own unique skills, so Zhou didn't need to do anything to resolve the problems. Zhou kept gaming while sitting in the car. He grinded the tiger several times, but he failed to get a companion egg drop. "When can I be like Wang Lu and bring the baby tiger everywhere to drop companion eggs?" Zhou really wanted a lucky baby tiger, but he couldn't get one. Originally, it wouldn't take more than a day to drive from Luoyang to Zhuolu County, but now that there were dimensional zones everywhere, they couldn't proceed in a straight line. The highway was also difficult to pass through, and they encountered some problems along the way. It wasn't until the evening of the 4th day that they finally arrived at Zhuolu County. There weren't many ordinary people left in Zhuolu County. Most of the humans had already fled to larger cities. Only a small number of freelance hunters and some military organizations remained. Anxing drove the car into a huge yard that looked like a government unit. There were quite a number of soldiers inside. Adjutant and an officer immediately came forward and bowed to Anxing. "How's the situation here? Where's Madam?" Anxing asked. "Madam has already brought people into the ancient battlefield," the officer said with a bitter smile. "What happened? Didn't I tell you to calm Madame down and get her to wait 2 days before entering? And Sheng's expression immediately changed. Although he wasn't the biological son of the Yin family, Tianzhua and Ouyang Lan treated him like family. And Sheng had long treated them as family. We have already done as you said. Madame originally agreed, but 2 days ago, there was an anomaly at the ancient battlefield. Madame couldn't wait any longer, so she brought people in first, the officer said. What anomaly? And Sheng's expression turned uglier. The occurrence of an anomaly meant that the place had become more dangerous. It's raining in the ancient battlefield. It's a very heavy rain and the color of the rain is red. Anyone who comes into contact with the blood-like rain will go berserk and bite any living thing it sees, just like a rabid dog. When the blood rain first started, a few soldiers didn't pay attention and got drenched by the blood rain. When we saw those soldiers, they were already biting each other. The officer seemed to recall the scene at that time and couldn't help but shiver. Young Master Wen, stay at the encampment and wait. I'll head to the battlefield to take a look, and Sheng said as he prepared to lead his men to the ancient battlefield. Ah Sheng, take me with you. I'll just watch from outside the battlefield. I won't cause you any trouble, Zhou Wen said. All right, but you have to promise me that you definitely won't enter. And Sheng knew that Zhou Wen's personality was too similar to the Yin family. Even if he didn't let Zhou Wen go, Zhou Wen would definitely go by himself. It was better to bring him along so that he could keep an eye on things. I said I won't enter. Don't worry, I know my abilities are limited. I won't cause you any trouble. Zhou Wen was telling the truth. He had no intention of entering. It wasn't a place he could set foot in for now. And Sheng got someone to bring the latest information and gave Lord Alcohol and Company a copy. He got them to take a look on the way. Zhou Wen also received a copy. After getting into the car, he carefully flipped through it. The situation on the battlefield was indeed terrible. When the expedition team first arrived, there weren't so many anomalies in the dimensional zones. There didn't seem to be much danger inside. They only discovered some ancient ruins, so they hired many experts to do research here. One of them was the authority in history, Ouyang Ting, who was also the former principal. However, who knew that with the passage of time, there would be more and more anomalies in the ancient battlefield? More than a month ago, the former principal, a group of experts, and the people protecting them were trapped inside. Only a soldier in charge of guarding the equipment escaped. Chapter 258. The Federation had already sent a few batches of people in to search for their whereabouts, but the changes in the ancient battlefield were just too intense. Many people had died inside, but they didn't find anyone. Later on, the Federation basically gave up. When Ouyang Lan arrived, the Federation army only guarded the ancient battlefield and didn't send anyone in. Ouyang Lan originally wanted to wait for Enshing to arrive, but a blood rain suddenly fell in the ancient battlefield. Ouyang Lan was afraid that the former principal wouldn't be able to hold on inside, so she couldn't care less and led her men into the ancient battlefield. According to the current information, as long as the blood rain didn't touch one's skin, it shouldn't be a problem. However, there were far more anomalies in the ancient battlefield. At the place where the old principal and the others were stationed, there were some ancient ruins that the old principal and the others studied. However, when the Federation soldiers rushed over later, many people died in the ruins. They couldn't even find the cause of their death. If Ouyang Lan wanted to find the former principal, she would definitely head there first. And Sheng was really afraid that Ouyang Lan would die there. If that happened, he really wouldn't be able to answer to Tianzhua and Jing. The car quickly arrived at the entrance of the ancient battlefield. The scene in front of them made the expressions of Lord Alcohol and Company turn solemn. A river surged down. On one side of the river was a clear sky, but on the other side of the river, dark clouds covered the sky and blood rain fell. The two sides of the river seemed to be two completely different worlds. The river was also scarlet like blood as it flowed downstream. It was unknown where it ultimately flowed to. There wasn't such a river in the past, right? And Xing said as he took out the map in the information. This was formed after the blood rain started. The blood rain was especially violent previously, but it's already a lot smaller now, said the officer from before. Prepare to cross the river and enter the ancient battlefield. And Xing got someone to prepare rainproof tools and distributed them to Lord Alcohol and Company. As Lord Alcohol wore a custom-made one-piece raincoat, he looked at the endless rain that resembled a blood curtain and muttered to himself, "Legend has it that in ancient times, the Yellow Emperor fought Qiyu. Qiyu was no match for him, so he invited the Count of the Wind and the Rain Master to help him. The storm swept through the enemy and forced the Yellow Emperor to abandon his armor and flee. This rain is blood-colored. It's an ominous sign." Zhou Wen also knew that this was an ancient battlefield, but that era was too long ago. He had only heard rumors and didn't know much about the situation. However, he had heard of the Rain Master before. Some said that the Rain Master was a true god conferred by heaven and earth, while others said that the Rain Master was actually a red dragon. Anyway, there were many legends. He had only heard them casually and could not take them seriously. "Young Master One, I will bring Madam back. Before that, you are not to enter the ancient battlefield no matter what." Before Sheng left with his men, he specially exhorted Zhou Wen not to enter. "Don't worry, I'll wait for you to bring Sister Lan back." Zhou Wen was in a hurry to find the tiny palm symbol. There weren't any city gates or monuments here, so he was somewhat afraid that he wouldn't be able to find it. "Battalion Commander Lu, protect young Master One. No matter what happens, young Master One has to live. Also, don't let him cross the river," Xing said to the officer. "I promise to complete the mission." Lu Yunxian saluted and promised loudly. Only then did Xing lead his men across the Blood River. Soon, they disappeared into the blood rain. The dozen or so men appeared so tiny in the face of the divine might of the world. Zhou Wen didn't have the time to be in a daze. He turned around and walked upstream. He had to find the tiny palm symbol. When the time came, he might be able to help a little. "Former Principal, Sis Lan, please don't let anything happen to you." Zhou Wen quickly walked along the river. "Young Master One, where are you going?" Lu Yunxian hurriedly stopped Zhou Wen. From his point of view, Zhou Wen shouldn't have come to such a place. Apart from causing trouble and wasting manpower and resources, he really didn't know what else Zhou Wen could do. "I want to take a walk nearby," Zhou Wen said. "No, Adjutant and wants me to protect your safety. Nothing must happen to you. Please return to the encampment with me immediately," Lu Yunxian said. "Adjutant and wants you to protect my safety, not restrict my freedom. If you can't do it, get someone else." As Zhou Wen spoke, he circled around Lu Yunxian and walked upstream along the Blood River. Lu Yunxian frowned slightly, but he still followed with his guards. Although he disliked Zhou Wen very much, he had to complete Xing's orders no matter what. As Zhou Wen walked ahead, Lu Yunxian and his men followed not far behind him. Seeing Zhou Wen stop every now and then, he even took pictures with his cell phone as though he was on vacation. As such, not only did Lu Yunxian dislike Zhou Wen, even the guards couldn't stand it any longer. If it wasn't for Xing's death order, they wouldn't have wanted to protect a person like Zhou Wen. Things have already come to this. Everyone is fighting for their lives, but he still has the leisure to come here and take pictures, a guard said unhappily. Another guard added, "If I had known this would happen, I would rather follow Adjutant and across the river to the ancient battlefield to save people than suffer this vexation." "Cut it out." Lu Yunxian stopped them. Although he didn't like Zhou Wen, a soldier was a soldier. Obeying orders was part of his professionalism. Zhou Wen naturally heard the soldiers' discussion, but he had no way of explaining himself. After walking along the river for more than 5 kilometers, he didn't find the tiny palm symbol. His phone didn't respond either. He had already reached the mountainous region. According to the information, the mountainous region was also within the range of a dimensional zone. Furthermore, the mountainous region was covered in dark clouds of blood rain. Without finding the tiny palm symbol, Zhou Wen could only continue walking downstream. Lu Yunxian and company originally imagined that the young master was finally returning, but to their surprise, Zhou Wen continued walking downstream without any intention of returning when he reached the spot he had come from. "Young Master Wen, it's getting late. It's getting dark. We should return. If you are interested, it won't be too late to come again tomorrow morning," Lu Yunxian said. "It's not dark yet. Let's continue walking." Zhou Wen didn't want to wait another day. The earlier he found the tiny palm symbol, the more he could contribute. Perhaps he would have a greater chance of saving the former principal. Lu Yunxian couldn't help but frown, but Zhou Wen had already walked downstream. He had no choice but to follow with his men. However, his expression didn't look good as he remained silent with a cold expression. Zhou Wen knew that Lu Yunxian and company were unhappy, but he could only pretend not to see it. He continued searching along the river, and couldn't help but pray inwardly, "Please find the tiny palm symbol." However, with the passage of time, Zhou Wen's heart sank. The sun had already set, but he still hadn't found the tiny palm symbol. Just as Zhou Wen was wondering if there was a tiny palm symbol here, his phone suddenly vibrated. Zhou Wen was immediately delighted as he hurriedly took out his phone and scanned his surroundings. "I got it." When Zhou Wen saw the tiny palm symbol on an ancient monument, he was so excited that he nearly cried. Chapter 259. Zhou Wen hurriedly scanned the tiny palm symbol and saw that it was downloading. He finally relaxed a little. "I hope I can make it in time." Zhou Wen looked at the blood rain that enveloped the world like fog across the river. He wondered how the former principal, Ouyang Lan, and Ensheng were doing. Just as Zhou Wen scanned the tiny palm symbol on the stone monument, a shadow suddenly jumped out from behind it. It was a gigantic blood frog that spat out a mouthful of blood at Zhou Wen. Lu Yunxian rushed to Zhou Wen's side and grabbed his shoulder with one hand, throwing him behind. At the same time, he raised a shield with his other hand to block the blood. The metal shield was corroded to the point of being riddled with holes. It had nearly melted through. Lu Yunxian held a saber in his other hand and slashed out with a saber beam, splitting the blood frog into two. "Young Master Wen, can we go back now?" Lu Yunxian asked Zhou Wen. "All right." Zhou Wen stood up from the ground and patted the dust off his body with a nod. He followed Lu Yunxian back to the encampment. The game had already been downloaded, and there was an additional boundary stone on the phone's desktop. On it were the words Zhuolu. He clicked on the Zhuolu instance dungeon and soon, the blood-colored avatar appeared in the ancient battlefield that was covered in blood rain. However, before Zhou Wen could control the blood-colored avatar, he saw it charge out crazily and fall into the blood river. Then, the screen went black. Zhou Wen was somewhat depressed. It was clearly not a good sign that he had died once. "How do I defend against the blood rain?" Zhou Wen lowered his head and thought. In reality, he could use a special one-piece raincoat. Not only was it waterproof, but its defense was also pretty good. However, there were no raincoats in-game. All Zhou Wen could do was attempt to wear the soft armor of the three-eyed golden warrior and the armor of the gold-armored beast. However, neither of them could completely cover every part of his body, so he didn't know if they were useful. The outcome proved once again that it was useless. As long as his skin was stained with blood, even if it was just a drop, the blood-colored avatar would lose control of Zhou Wen as though it had rabies. It would eventually die tragically in the blood rain. Zhou Wen attempted to activate the Lotus Flower Buddha body to see if it could withstand the corrosion of the blood rain. Only then could he survive in the ancient battlefield. However, the Lotus Flower Buddha body constantly expended primordial energy. Only by switching his primordial energy art to Tao body could he sustain the constant expenditure of the Lotus Flower Buddha body. As he advanced through the blood rain, his vision was extremely poor. He couldn't see anything 2 to 3 meters away. Thankfully, Zhou had the truth listener earring, allowing him to have a radar-like effect in the vast blood rain. Stepping on the muddy ground, Zhou proceeded towards the location marked on the military map. The place he was heading to was the ruin the former principal and company were researching. The former principal and company had gone missing there, so Ouyang Lan and Ansheng had definitely gone there. After walking for a short distance, Zhou heard a figure walking towards him. It was a humanoid creature with long hair that reached the ground and covered its face. Its limbs were long and slender, and its body was drenched in blood. The way it walked was very strange, like a zombie. Zhou didn't dare be careless. He summoned the Saber Shield Knight and the Demonized General and got them to charge forward. No matter what it was a creature from the ancient battlefield and definitely could not be underestimated. However, the Saber Shield Knight and the Demonized General couldn't withstand the blood rain's poison. Before they could charge far, they lost control as though they had gone mad and began killing each other. Does the blood rain affect companion beasts as well? Zhou was in a bad mood. Without being able to use companion beasts, he had to constantly activate his Lotus Transformation Buddha body to expend his primordial energy. This greatly weakened his combat strength. Kacha! The strange creature suddenly moved. Its body was unbelievably fast in the rain, and in an instant, it appeared in front of the crazy demonized general. It grabbed the demonized general's head with both hands and twisted it off. Then, it threw it to the ground and moved again, twisting the Blade Shield Knight's head off. This is indeed not a place for humans. Zhou could tell from its speed that it was definitely an epic existence. He had encountered an epic creature the moment he entered the ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield was more terrifying than Zhou imagined. He originally believed that even if it was a mythical battlefield, there would be some ordinary soldiers and generals. It was impossible for all of them to be high-level creatures, but from the looks of it, his imagination had been too perfect. Zhou decided to summon all his companion beasts to see which companion beasts could withstand the blood rain. It was also good to know how much combat strength he had left. Ghost Bride wasn't afraid of the blood rain as she floated beside Zhou. The Overlord spear form of the mutated Overlord Snake wasn't affected either. It could be used in the blood rain. The three-eyed Golden Warrior and gold-armored beast's companion forms weren't affected either. However, the silver-winged Sky Spider failed to withstand the power of the blood rain and fell into chaos. The Lotus Flower mutated ant was fine, and Dr. Darkness wasn't affected either. Truth Listener and the Yin-Yang Purple Airbell could also be used. Now, Zhou could only use these pets in the blood rain. It was much better than he had expected. Seeing the monster charge at him, Zhou gripped the Overlord's spear tightly. At the instant the monster charged at him, he activated Ghost Steps and arrived behind the monster. With Ever Victorious's special effect, the Overlord's spear stabbed into the monster's back. Ever Victorious was indeed useful. The tip of the spear pierced through the monster's body, piercing through its back and coming out of its chest. Zhou was delighted, but he suddenly saw the monster's body explode like a water ball, splattering the blood-colored avatar with black water. The black water rapidly flowed in the blood rain as though it had a life of its own. It gathered together again and distorted into the monster from before. What the hell is this fellow? Zhou was secretly alarmed. Just as he was about to attack again, he saw the screen turn black. The blood-colored avatar had died again. Zhou couldn't help but frown. After careful thought, he understood how the blood-colored avatar had died. It should be because the black water touched its body. From the looks of it, the monster has a stronger viral ability than the blood water. Zhou felt a headache coming on. Although he knew that the monster had such an ability, he couldn't seem to find a way to crack it. The monster itself seemed to be water elemental. The Overlord spears, ever victorious, didn't have much of an effect on it. Furthermore, it had a powerful corruption ability. Even the Lotus Flower Buddha body couldn't withstand it. Epic dimensional creatures were just too powerful. Before Zhou advanced to the epic stage, he found it difficult to fight any epic creature. I have to find a way to restrain it. Zhou knew the principle of practice producing true knowledge. When he entered the game again, he could only search for the monster's weakness in battle. Chapter 260. Lu Yunxian was very displeased with Zhou. He really couldn't understand why Anxing would bring Zhou to such a place. Not only had he willfully wanted to travel, but after returning to the encampment, he had been gaming on his phone. It was truly an eyesore. However, Lu Yunxian was relieved that Zhou didn't cause trouble for them. It was no wonder that Lu Yunxian and company were unhappy with Zhou. Zhou's performance was truly annoying. If Zhou were in Lu Yunxian's shoes, he probably wouldn't like such a person either. However, Zhou had his own difficulties. Even if he knew that it would infuriate others, he could only continue doing it. Zhou fought again and again and died again and again. Although he didn't lose a drop of blood each time, it was difficult for him to keep up with the expenditure with his physique and ability to produce blood. Usually, when he gamed, Zhou would switch to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra to strengthen his body's recovery ability. However, he had died too often, so he was still a little anemic. Furthermore, he didn't know if it would cause any latent problems to his body. Zhou had also thought of getting a blood transfusion to make up for the blood he had lost. Although a blood transfusion required some troublesome procedures, it was still possible to obtain it if he thought of a way. However, Zhou eventually gave up on the idea of a blood transfusion. This was because he didn't know if the blood transfused into his body would be his or someone else's if it dripped onto the mysterious phone. Zhou took out the blood replenishing medicine he had bought from the chaos space. Although he didn't know if it was useful, it was better than nothing. Even psychological comfort was of some use. As he had earned a huge sum of money from selling companion eggs, the blood replenishing medicine Zhou bought was clearly of a higher grade. There were also good things like American ginseng and donkey hide gelatin. However, Zhou looked around but didn't find any cooking tools like an electric pot. He didn't even have an electric kettle, so he had no choice but to call Lu Yunxian. Lu Yunxian was studying the latest intelligence with his colleague. The anomaly in the ancient battlefield was getting worse. Even outside the river of blood, dimensional creatures would appear from time to time. Now, the League's garrison had been doing cleanup work. Although they belonged to Luoyang's and family, the situation was so terrible that Anxing and company would definitely be affected. Suddenly, he heard his phone ring. Lu Yunxian took a look and saw that it was Zhou. He frowned and picked up the call. Zhou, is something the matter? Lu Yunxian asked. Do you have something like a rice cooker or an electric kettle? I need to cook something, Zhou said as he gamed with one hand. This is a military encampment, not a university dormitory. There's no such thing, Lu Yunxian said. Then, is there any way to cook? Zhou asked again. I'll send someone to your place. If there's anything you need, tell her. I'm in a meeting now, Lu Yunxian said before hanging up. Zhou didn't take it to heart. He was only asking. It didn't matter if he couldn't cook it. He planned on buying some tools to cook the blood replenishing medicine and placing them in the chaos space the next time he came out. In-game, Zhou was fighting a monster. Having died so many times wasn't without a price. He had roughly figured out the monster's background. That fellow was like a water ghost, possessing the power of water. Ordinary physical attacks were useless against it. Moreover, it had a powerful virus on its body. As long as it touched any part of its body, even if it was just a drop of water, it would be infected by its virus. If one's body's resistance was strong enough, they could last a little longer. If one's body's resistance was weak, they would die on the spot. Zhou was only at the legendary stage. Relatively speaking, his physique was relatively poor. When he used the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra, he could only withstand it for a little longer, but it wasn't of much use. What was even more terrifying was that the monster could fuse its poison into the blood rain. It was impossible to guard against. If one wasn't careful, they might fall for its tricks. When Zhou used the ancient Sovereign Sutra, he had a certain restraining effect on it. He could injure its body, but to kill it, just the augmentation of the ancient Sovereign Sutra's primordial energy was clearly insufficient. If I can advance to the epic stage, with the augmentation of the ancient Sovereign Sutra, I can blast it apart with my fist. Unfortunately, I'm still only at the legendary stage. Zhou sighed slightly. All he could do was continue using the blood-colored avatar's life to probe and think of a way to kill it. Zhou had also thought of taking a detour, but after taking a detour, he still encountered it. Clearly, there were definitely more than one or two such monsters on the battlefield. If he couldn't think of a way to kill it now, it would definitely be difficult for him to advance in the ancient battlefield. Just as he was fighting the monster, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," Zhou said without looking up as he gamed. Suwon walked in and couldn't help but frown when she saw Zhou gaming on his phone. However, she still said, "I'm Suwon from the medical team. Battalion Commander Lu got me to come over and see if you need anything in the future. You can tell me if you need anything in the future. Please help me boil the medicine on the table." Zhou was fighting the monster, so he couldn't divert his attention to talk to Suwon. "Are you injured?" Suwon asked with a frown. Lu Yunxian had asked her to take good care of Zhou. If he was injured, she had to deal with him immediately. "No, it's just some medicine to replenish blood. If it's convenient for you, help me boil it. If it's not convenient, just leave it there," Zhou said. Suwon bit her lip when she heard Zhou say that. She took the medicine and left Zhou's room without a word. At such a time, Zhou, who spent his days gaming in his dorm without doing anything, actually needed to drink supplements. Suwon found it unbelievable. "I really don't know why officer and brought such a foppish brother here." Although Suwon was displeased, she still found a female soldier from the medical team and got her to boil the medicine for Zhou. Suwon took a look at the medicine. They were all rather good supplements, and she couldn't help but curse inwardly for being a foppish son. When Suwon brought the medicine over, Zhou was still gaming. She wasn't in the mood to bother with him. She put down the medicine and returned to take care of the injured. Recently, many dimensional creatures had appeared outside the Blood River. Many soldiers had been injured in battle. Suwon felt that it was a waste for Zhou to drink the supplement. It should be given to the injured warriors. Zhou naturally didn't know what Suwon was thinking. As he drank the medicine and gamed, he died tragically in the ancient battlefield again. "I wonder when Banana Fairy will complete her evolution?" Zhou glanced at the tornado in the chaos space. It was still spinning without any signs of stopping. He dripped his blood again and entered the ancient battlefield. Zhou encountered the monster again and took a deep breath before charging forward again. Chapter 261. Zhou looked at Zhang Yuji, who was crying in front of the black six-winged dragon's corpse. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly saw a golden pillar of light rise from the seawater. In the pillar of light, a golden apple floated out of the water and slowly rose into midair. The golden apple was clearly the one Zhou had thrown out. At that moment, it seemed to have a life of its own as it floated in midair, emitting a resplendent divine glow. Above the golden beam of light that reached the sky, a golden figure slowly descended from the sky like a god. The figure seemed to be condensed from golden light as it descended with a terrifying pressure. It was like a prison or a sea, as though it was a supreme existence in the world. The golden figure descended along the golden beam of light until it stopped in front of the golden apple. It reached out and grabbed the golden apple. Almost at the same time, Zhou Wen and company heard an indescribable divine voice sound in their mind. Human, you have completed my race's trial in the human world. Leave your names behind. You will receive the reward bestowed by my race. I don't want it, Zhang Yuji said as she shook her head. The tears on her face were still visible. Zhou Wen and Enxing exchanged looks as Enxing nodded slightly at Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and said to the golden figure, "Poison." Boom. With Zhou Wen's voice, the entire island trembled as though the birth of the universe was repeating itself. The destruction of the island rapidly recovered under the envelopment of the golden light. The seawater receded and the ground calmed. Rocks flew backward, restoring the mountain walls. The grass sprouted and grew again, and the golden apple tree produced another golden apple. Under the golden apple tree, another black dragon appeared. It looked very similar to the one Zhou Wen and company had killed, but it was somewhat different. As for the black six-winged dragon's corpse that Zhou Wen and company had killed, it gradually disintegrated and vanished, leaving behind only a dimensional crystal. Under the apple tree there was another item. It was a golden monument. On the top of the monument was the word poison. There was nothing below it. In the name of the gods, I bestow you a golden apple. The golden figure held the golden apple as it shimmered. Moments later, the golden light gradually faded, and the golden apple's luster converged as it slowly flew towards Zhou Wen. When the golden shadow and beam vanished, the golden apple landed in Zhou Wen's hand. Although it was still the golden apple, Zhou Wen felt something different. How do we get out? Zhou Wen couldn't help but ask when he saw the golden figure disappear. Let's try leaving the way we came, Enxing said. Let's go. Zhou Wen helped Zhang Yuji up and picked up the black six-winged dragon's dimensional crystal. It was a skill crystal, but he didn't know what skill it was. Furthermore, mythical dimensional crystals had very high requirements for stat. It wasn't that easy to absorb. The three of them came to the pool again. This time, the pool sucked them in. When they came out of the waterfall again, they found that they had returned to the original island. Their boat was parked on the beach, and the island in the distance was faintly visible. Do you still want to continue heading to other dimensional zones? Enxing asked. Our injuries are so serious. I don't know when we will recover. How are we going to go? Zhou Wen felt that he was definitely at odds with the dimensional zones in reality. It was best not to go to any dimensional zones. The three of them boarded the boat. Zhou Wen and Enxing were too seriously injured, so it wasn't appropriate for them to move around. Zhang Yuji drove the boat while Enxing was in charge of commanding. They followed the path back to the Peninsula of Gods. We have a total of 2 spoils of war. The golden apple and the black six-winged dragon's essence energy skill crystal. Yuji, choose one. Zhou Wen placed the 2 items in front of Zhang Yuji. If it wasn't for Zhang Yuji, he might have died. He wouldn't have been able to last until demonic neonate's ancient sword tore out of his heart. Zhang Yuji was indeed qualified. There's no need. I don't want to see anything related to it, Zhang Yuji said with a shake of her head. Are you all right? Zhou Wen asked Zhang Yuji. Zhang Yuji's condition was clearly a little odd. She was actually so sad for a dimensional creature. Furthermore, the black six-winged dragon hadn't injured her during its final death strike at that moment of rage. This was clearly not right. Zhou Wen guessed that this might have something to do with the essence energy art Zhang Yuji cultivated or her life providence. Zhou Wen had previously heard that some people's life providences could communicate with dimensional creatures. As for Zhang Yuji's ability, it was clearly not as simple as communication. I'm fine. I'll get used to it. Zhang Yuji forced a smile, but it was obvious that she was still in a terrible mood. Seeing that she really didn't want it and even felt some disgust, Zhou Wen gave the 2 items to Enxing. Enxing took the dimensional crystal and left the golden apple to Zhou Wen. Take this. It might be useful in the future. Zhou Wen and Enxing didn't stand on ceremony as they put away the golden apple. Zhang Yuji didn't wish to mention what had happened on the island at all, so Zhou Wen and Xing didn't ask any further. While the ship was still en route, Zhou Wen and company saw a flock of sky cranes tearing through the sky. Soon, they arrived in front of their ship. Zhang Xiao landed from the sky crane's back and saw that Zhou Wen and Xing were seriously injured. His expression changed drastically. He ignored the two of them and walked straight to Zhang Yuji, asking anxiously, "Yuji, are you all right?" "I'm fine. It's all thanks to Zhou Wen and Xing protecting me that I wasn't injured. However, they were seriously injured. I have to thank them properly," Zhang Yuji said. Zhou Wen and Xing immediately understood that Zhang Yuji had said that because she was afraid that the Zhang family would cause trouble for them. "Thank you for protecting Yuji. If you need anything in the future, try to inform me." After Zhang Xiao said that to Zhou Wen and Xing, he called for an epic expert of the Zhang family to come down and use a rare healing spell to treat their injuries. At the same time, the Heavenly Crane team protected Zhang Yuji's return. After returning to the harbor, Zhou Wen and Xing's injuries were much better. The Zhang family quickly left with Zhang Yuji as though they were protecting a real princess. I originally heard that the Zhang family's little princess is very favored. I thought it was because the Zhang family only has one daughter, but from the looks of it, it's not that simple. That might be one reason, but the most important reason might have something to do with her life providence. And Xing said to Zhou Wen as he watched the Zhang family protect Zhang Yuji and disappear. Zhou Wen nodded. He naturally could tell that there was something wrong with Zhang Yuji. Then, he recalled how she had slept in a coffin on the plane. It was even more problematic. "Don't think too much about it. Let's find a place to stay and recuperate from our injuries. With such serious injuries, I'm afraid it will take some time for us to recover." Thankfully, the Zhang family used healing spells to treat us. Otherwise, it's hard to say if we can participate in the auction the day after tomorrow, Xing said. Chapter 262. They found a hotel to stay in. Both of them were injured, so they returned to their rooms to rest after arriving. The Zhang family's epic expert's healing skills were very powerful, but it was impossible for him to completely repair their damaged organs and bones. Even with their physiques and self-healing abilities, it would probably be difficult for them to even fight without half a month. Zhou Wen lay on the bed with his phone in one hand and the golden apple in the other. He was taking pictures of the golden apple. Although it was a gift from a god, it didn't have a manual. The god didn't tell Zhou Wen what it was for, so he could only study it himself. Thankfully, Zhou Wen had the mysterious phone. He took a picture of the golden apple and saw its information appear on the phone. Golden apple, treasure of the Aegean gods, can randomly change a life providence once. Zhou Wen couldn't help but be taken aback when he looked at the annotation. He never expected such an item to exist in this world that could change a life providence. The golden apple's ability to change a life providence could undoubtedly give people with trash life providences a chance to rise from the ashes. However, Zhou Wen was rather satisfied with his life providence and had no intention of changing it. The golden apple was useless to him. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and stored the golden apple into the chaos space. Although it was useless to him, it was very valuable. It was very likely worth more than a mythical companion egg. Something like a life providence wasn't something that could be controlled by humans. It was related to the primordial energy art one cultivated, as well as one's physique and other factors. Therefore, there were great variables. Even if one cultivated a top-notch primordial energy art and had good conditions, they couldn't help but have a relatively useless life providence. For example, a senior of the Dugu family naturally cultivated the best primordial energy art. His physique was inherited by the Dugu family, so he naturally wasn't bad. Furthermore, that person had been extremely talented from a young age. He learned everything in one go. The Dugu family believed that he was the hope of revitalizing the family in the future, so they spent a lot of effort and resources to nurture him. When he condensed a life providence, the life providence he condensed was called God of Immortality. Back then, everyone felt that with such an awesome name, the life providence would definitely be extremely powerful. However, they realized that with the God of Immortality life providence, no matter what skill or weapon he used, he couldn't injure his opponent. His life providence prevented him from killing anyone. He couldn't even injure anyone. If he couldn't even kill the weakest dimensional creature, wouldn't that make him a cripple? Such cases were not rare in the 6 great families. Although there were only a few extreme cases, there were still many people who wished to change their life providence. Zhou had heard from Anwen that the Cape family had once produced an unlucky life providence. He was really unlucky. If he sold the golden apple to such a person, that person would definitely agree even if he used a mythical companion egg to exchange for it, if he had one. Before the auction began, Zhou didn't go anywhere. He rested in his room and kept grinding dungeons. After the battle with the black 6-winged dragon, the mutated stone chi's armor was shattered, so the mutated stone chi naturally died. Zhou had lost the most important piece of armor, so he could only grind ordinary chi, although it wasn't as high as the mutated stone chi's defense. He had no other choice. Without that stone artifact, there probably wouldn't be a second mutated stone chi if it wasn't for the defense of the mutated stone chi armor. He might have died in the battle with the black 6-winged dragon. After grinding the Zhuolu battlefield for 2 days with the baby tiger, the chi armor didn't drop. Instead, another white shadow of poison dropped. The baby tiger only increased the drop rate, but what it dropped wasn't something Zhou could control. It wasn't like Wang Lu, who could get whatever she wanted. The auction is about to begin. It's time for us to go. And Xing called Zhou to participate in the auction. Zhou followed and Xing to the auction. When he arrived at the venue, he took out an auction booklet and realized that apart from the invisibility cloak, there were quite a number of good items at the auction. Although there were no mythical companion eggs, there were quite a number of epic companion eggs. Many of them were exotic companion eggs. There were even angel companion eggs being sold. What surprised Zhou the most was that there were constellation companion eggs. The one that appeared at the auction was an Equilius companion egg. However, the booklet didn't clearly state what an Equilius companion egg was. From the looks of it, we are quite fated. I never expected to meet again so soon. Zhou was reading a booklet in the hall when someone walked over and sat down beside him. Li Mabai. Zhou turned his head and realized that it was Li Mabai. However, when he carefully sized up Li Mabai, he realized that something was amiss. His aura was very weak, almost like an ordinary person who had never cultivated. Didn't Li Xian tell you? My cultivation has been crippled, Li Mabai said indifferently. Is it because of the birthday banquet? Zhou asked in surprise as he sized up Li Mabai. I originally wanted to use my life soul to promote Li Xian's growth, but that punk failed. Li Mabai simply explained how he had used the evil Kingu to help Li Xian advance to the epic stage. Zhou didn't believe Li Mabai's words as he looked at him and said, "In that case, everything you did was for Li Xian's good? That doesn't make sense, right? Li Xian nearly died in Guide Ancient City." Li Mabai said indifferently, "It's not for his good. I just want to achieve my own goals. To me, he's just a tool. Unfortunately, this tool is useless. Don't you know that Su Miantu is also one of my people? If they had worked together to deal with my stupid brother, do you think he would still be alive?" Zhou was taken aback. Li Mabai's words seemed to make sense. What about the lotus pond? If I wasn't there? Before Zhou could finish, he was interrupted by Li Mabai. Don't you think you should have been the one who died? Li Mabai said expressionlessly. Zhou carefully recalled the situation and couldn't help but be surprised. He realized that it was indeed the case. From beginning to end, Su Miantu's target seemed to be him, not Li Xian. I originally thought that since he's a member of the Li family and has the same blood as me, he should be able to do something. I never expected him to be a useless fellow. Then, let him be useless for the rest of his life. When you return, help me tell him that no one will find trouble with him in the future. Let him be the third young master of the Li family in peace, Li Mabai said. Zhou didn't know if it was true, nor did he dare believe Li Mabai. He had to ask Li Xian when he returned to confirm it, so he didn't wish to say too much to Li Mabai. Chapter 263. Without a word, Zhou summoned his yin-yang purple air bell and aimed it at the black smoke. The surging black smoke seemed to be sucked away as it surged into the yin-yang purple air bell. In the blink of an eye, it was sucked clean. The monster seemed somewhat puzzled, unsure of what had happened. It stared at the yin-yang purple air bell with its strange eyes. Zhou held the bell and shook it at the monster. Black smoke immediately surged out of the bell and enveloped the monster's body. When the black smoke touched its scales, it immediately seeped in. The monster's eyes rolled back as it collapsed to the ground. Holy sh*t, is this black smoke that domineering? Even the monster poisoned itself to death? Zhou was alarmed, but on careful look, he realized that the monster hadn't died. It had only fallen asleep. The monster had fallen asleep, and its life soul seemed to have lost control. It floated motionlessly above its head. Seeing such a good opportunity, Zhou couldn't miss it. He charged forward with the Overlord's spear in hand and stabbed the monster's abdomen. The ever-victorious skill came into effect. The tip of the spear stabbed in, opening up a hole in the monster's abdomen. Black blood immediately flowed to the ground. He didn't know what kind of power the black smoke had. Despite having such a huge hole and bleeding profusely, the monster didn't react at all. It continued sleeping there, leaving Zhou alarmed. Zhou naturally wouldn't be merciful to it. He stabbed it again and again. After stabbing it 17 to 18 times, the monster was finally killed. The black dragon-like life soul also shattered. A notification popped up in-game. Killed epic creature, Qi discovered dimensional crystal. Zhou saw that the dimensional crystal that dropped was a strength 32 crystal. Although its stats were very high for Zhou, his limit was only 21. It was useless no matter how high it was. After absorbing the 32 strength crystal, Zhou felt brimming with energy. The fatigue from before was swept away, but his strength stat didn't increase. It remained at 21 points. Since the Wangliang and Qi have appeared, there should be a Mei. I wonder what kind of creature a Mei is. Zhou was curious. However, he was not bored enough to deliberately look for Mei. He walked in the direction of the ruins, drenched in the blood rain. Not long after, he encountered another Wangliang. With Dr. Darkness restraining it, killing it was very easy. However, no poison crystal dropped. All it dropped was an ordinary speed crystal that was useless to Zhou. As he rushed towards the ruins, he encountered a few Wangliang and Pai, but he didn't see any Mei, nor did they drop any useful items. After an arduous night of battle, Zhou finally arrived at the ruins marked on the map. Looking at the broken stone pillars and stone walls that stood in the blood rain not far away, Zhou wasn't in a rush to get the blood-colored avatar to walk over. Instead, he carefully read the information An Xing had previously sent. According to the information, the Federation had sent a few batches of people to the ruins to search for the whereabouts of Ouyang Ting and the others. However, when they entered the ruins, they would die for no reason. Even epic experts were no exception. The reason had yet to be found. It was also because of this that they felt that the former principal and the others had died inside. They didn't send anyone to rescue them until the An family received the news and rushed over. Zhou observed the ruins from afar, hoping to find any clues. However, they were filled with ancient symbols that he couldn't understand. No matter how he looked at them, he couldn't figure anything out. I can only risk my life to scout ahead. Zhou Wen summoned Dr. Darkness and Ghost Bride. Together with the three-eyed golden warrior and gold-armored beast, they entered the ruins while the blood-colored avatar stayed outside. The golden warrior and gold-armored beast were pets with powerful bodies, while Ghost Bride had a ghost body. Dr. Darkness was an epic pet. Zhou Wen wanted to see who would die inside and use this to determine the terrifying power inside. The four pets carefully walked into the ruins and slowly explored it. Before he could walk far, he heard a crack. The golden warrior's head flew off its neck and it collapsed to the ground. Just like what was written in the information, it died from decapitation. Zhou Wen frowned slightly. Although he had already looked very carefully, he didn't see any creatures appear, nor did he discover any energy fluctuations. It was as though an invisible executioner had chopped off the golden warrior's head. Crack! Just as Zhou Wen was pondering over it, Dr. Darkness's head fell off and he died on the spot. He didn't have any more resistance because he was an epic creature. He died just as easily. Zhou Wen still didn't see anything in the ruins. He couldn't even tell how Dr. Darkness died. Not long after, the gold-armored beast suffered the same fate. It also didn't have a chance to react and died just as easily. In less than 5 minutes, Zhou Wen's 3 companion beasts, including the epic Dr. Darkness, were silently killed. Only Ghost Bride was still slowly floating forward. Ghost Bride walked forward for a while, but her head wasn't chopped off. Zhou Wen couldn't help but be delighted. From the looks of it, that power is useless against Ghost. Zhou Wen didn't dare enter himself, but with Ghost Bride around, she could scout the way for him. Without any hesitation, Zhou Wen got Ghost Bride to speed up and began a carpet search of the ruins, hoping to discover something. It was unknown if it was because the power in the ruins was too terrifying, but even Qi, Mei, Wang, and Liang didn't appear in the ruins. It was dead silent. Apart from the constant rain of blood, there were only the dilapidated ancient buildings. Zhou Wen controlled Ghost Bride and got her to search for clues in the various dilapidated buildings. This was a game, so he definitely couldn't find the former principal and company here. However, it was impossible for them to vanish into thin air. They must have gone somewhere. Zhou Wen only wanted to find that place. At the encampment, the soldiers guarding the gate suddenly saw a person rush over as though he had gone mad. They hurriedly raised their guns and were on high alert. "Stop. Don't go any further. Otherwise I'll shoot," the soldier hurriedly warned when he saw the person rushing over. However, the person didn't stop and continued running over crazily. Just as the soldier was about to fire a warning shot, he suddenly realized that the person was wearing the same military uniform as them. However, due to the large amount of blood flowing from his body, most of the military uniform was dyed dark red. "It's Lu Qingji. Didn't he follow Madame Lan to the ancient battlefield? Why did he run back alone? Where's Madame Lan and company?" One of the soldiers took a careful look and immediately recognized the person. He was alarmed as he hurriedly went forward. Lu Qingji, who was covered in blood, ran over. When he saw the two of them, he immediately pounced over. The 2 soldiers hurriedly held him up. Quickly tell Adjutant and Madam is in danger. Save her immediately. It'll be too late if we delay any longer," Lu Qingji said anxiously as he coughed out blood. Chapter 264. Lu Qingji, what happened? Lu Yunxian asked Lu Qingji, who was receiving treatment, in front of the medical team's bed. Lu Qingji's injuries were shocking. Under the treatment of a companion beast with healing abilities, his life was saved. However, his injuries still needed a longer period of treatment. "Battalion Commander, quickly tell Adjutant and that Madame Lan is trapped in the ruins. Quickly send reinforcements. It will be too late if we delay any longer," Lu Qingji said anxiously. "Adjutant and entered the ancient ruins 2 days ago. Didn't you encounter them?" Su Wen asked. Lu Qingji was taken aback when he heard that. He shook his head and said, Adjutant and has already entered the ruins? Why didn't I see them? I escaped from the ruins and rushed back with all my might. I didn't see anyone. That's strange. Tell me clearly. What happened to Madame Lan? Lu Yunxian asked. Lu Qingji hurriedly said, We entered the ancient battlefield with Madame Lan and encountered many strange things. However, under Madame Lan's lead, we arrived at the ruins where old Mr. Ouyang and company were researching without any mishaps. That place had already become extremely strange. Many of our companion beasts were sacrificed there. They were all beheaded and killed. In the end, it was Madame Lan who came up with a solution that allowed us to safely enter the ruins. As he had lost too much blood, he felt his mouth dry. Lu Qingji swallowed his saliva and continued, In the ruins, we found an entrance that led underground. We also found a mark left behind by old Mr. Ouyang. In the beginning, we used many companion beasts to scout the way, but there weren't any problems. However, after Madame Lan led people down, the entrance to the passageway was sealed. The few of us who stayed outside tried our best to open the stone door. What happened next? Su Wen pressed. Lu Qingji panted a few times and continued, After more than 3 hours, the stone door at the entrance automatically opened. Old Xiu rushed out. At that time, Old Xiu was covered in blood. The color of his military uniform was almost indistinguishable. He rushed out and handed me a strange stone artifact. In a very urgent tone, he said that he wanted to hand the stone artifact to Adjutant An and get him to bring people down to the ruins to save Madame Lan. Otherwise, it would be too late. Back then, he was too anxious and spoke incoherently. He even said that the stone artifact was the key to opening some door and that he had to put it back to open the door to save Madame Lan. He said that he had to be quick or it would be too late. He repeated it a few times and the few of us couldn't interrupt. Just as we were about to ask, Old Xiu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and died. What about the stone artifact? Lu Yunxian asked. Lu Qingji's face revealed a look of guilt. Even people like Madame Lan and Old Xiu can't deal with the situation in the stone passageway, much less us. After some discussion, we planned on bringing the stone artifact back to report, but the ancient battlefield is just too terrifying. A few of our brothers died there, and I barely escaped. However, on the way, the stone artifact was swallowed by a dimensional creature with a WYRM head and a lion-like body. It's all my fault. I didn't manage to keep the stone artifact. Do you still remember where the dimensional creature is? Lu Yunxian asked after some thought. I know the rough location, but I don't know if the dimensional creature is still there, Lu Qingji said. All right. Su Wen, do your best to treat Lu Qingji's injuries. Everyone else, prepare to set off at any time, Lu Yunxian said. Commander Lu, since Adjutant An has already gone, I'm afraid it's useless for us to enter, right? A middle-aged officer said. Lu Yunxian said, when Lu Qingji and company returned, they didn't encounter Adjutant An. Therefore, even if Adjutant An arrived at the ruins, he wouldn't know of the existence of the stone artifact, much less that it had been swallowed by the dimensional creature. We have to find the stone artifact and send it to him. We can't do much, but killing a dimensional creature shouldn't be difficult. Furthermore, there's Lu Qingji, who is familiar with the situation, so there shouldn't be any problems. Go prepare, Lu Yunxian said in an unquestionable tone. Now, Lu Yunxian's rank was the highest here. Since he had already made the decision, no one questioned him. They returned to make preparations to enter the ancient battlefield. Su Wen also wanted to go, but she was rejected by Lu Yunxian. Lu Yunxian wanted her to stay behind and take care of Zhou Wen. He couldn't let anything happen to him. Commander, let me go. My healing abilities can reduce many casualties. Zhou Wen can be taken care of by the medical team's female soldiers, Su Wen requested again. Stay behind and take care of Zhou Wen. This is an order. If anything happens to Zhou Wen, he will be dealt with according to military rules. There will be no mercy, Lu Yunxian said firmly. Although he had spoken casually, he knew deep down that the ancient battlefield was too dangerous. Their trip was fraught with danger, so he didn't want Su-Wen to take the risk. Su-Wen opened her mouth, but she couldn't say a word. She was a soldier, so she could only obey Lu Yunxian's orders. However, she was extremely indignant. Zhou-Wen was gaming in his room, but he kept wearing the truth listener earring. He could clearly hear the nearby movements. When Lu Qingji returned, it was a little far from where Zhou-Wen lived. Zhou-Wen didn't hear it, but when Lu Yunxian's men began preparing to set off, he heard the commotion. When he walked out, Lu Yunxian and company had already boarded the vehicles and set off. 2 jeeps and a huge truck were driving out of the camp. Zhou-Wen realized what had happened. Seeing Su-Wen standing at the entrance of the camp, he walked over and asked, "Head Nurse Su, what happened? What are Commander Lu and company doing? Why are you asking so many questions? They are going to the ancient battlefield to save people. Do you dare to go? Go back and play your games," Su-Wen said snappily. Su-Wen believed that if it wasn't for Zhou-Wen, she wouldn't have been left behind. They are going to the ancient battlefield to save people? Who are they going to save? Ouyang Lan or Sheng? Zhou-Wen was alarmed as he hurriedly asked. Whoever they save has nothing to do with you. Su-Wen didn't wish to say too much to Zhou-Wen. Zhou-Wen frowned slightly. He knew how dangerous the ancient battlefield was. That was why the Yin family had invited so many epic experts from outside. However, if Commander Lu and the low-ranking officers were to head to the ancient battlefield, it would be no different from sending themselves to their death. Head Nurse Su, I believe you still don't know that Ouyang Lan is actually my mother, right? I hope you can understand my feelings and tell me what happened, Zhou-Wen said when he saw that Su-Wen refused to tell him what had happened. Who are you lying to? Madame Lan only has 2 children, the Overseer and Miss Jing. Do you think you are the Overseer? Or Miss Jing? Su-Wen said with a curl of her lips. You should know about Ouyang Lan's remarriage, right? I'm the son of her remarried husband. Who do you think I am to her? Zhou-Wen said. Su-Wen looked at Zhou-Wen in disbelief. Chapter 265. If it wasn't for my identity, why do you think Xing got you to take care of me? Seeing that Su-Wen was still hesitating, Zhou-Wen went against his conscience and said, I have a very good relationship with Ouyang Lan. We're like biological mother and son. My concern for her is no less than the siblings. Can you tell me what happened? Su-Wen hesitated for a moment and felt that it wasn't a secret, so she recounted the situation to Zhou-Wen. After Zhou-Wen heard that, he turned around and walked out of the camp. Although Lu Yunxian was also an epic expert, he didn't have any capable subordinate. The low-level officers he brought were basically at the legendary stage. With their abilities, it was too difficult to deal with the dimensional creatures in the ancient battlefield. Their lives had nothing to do with Zhou-Wen, but if he couldn't retrieve the stone artifact, Ouyang Lan might die. It was even possible that the former principal was in the underground stone tunnel. Therefore, Zhou-Wen had to retrieve the stone artifact no matter what. Hey, where are you going? Su-Wen hurriedly chased after Zhou-Wen when she saw him walking out of the camp. I'm going to help Commander Lu and the others retrieve the stone artifact, Zhou-Wen said. Stop fooling around. You're a student. Why are you causing trouble? Su-Wen hurriedly stopped Zhou-Wen. Lu Yunxian had asked her to watch Zhou-Wen, so she couldn't let him do anything rash. Head Nurse Su, you are the medical team's highest-ranking officer and the best doctor. Why didn't you participate in this operation? Zhou-Wen asked Su-Wen. Su-Wen snorted coldly and said, Isn't it because of you? If it weren't for me staying behind to take care of you, I would definitely have gone. Therefore, you should stay here obediently and stop causing trouble. Then are you really not going? The ancient battlefield is fraught with danger. As the best doctor here, you actually stayed behind and watched indifferently as your comrades sacrificed themselves. A comrade who could have survived died because you weren't there. Can you really feel at ease? Zhou stared at Su Wen and enunciated each word clearly. That's right. You're right. Su Wen's expression changed slightly, but she still said, whatever you say is useless. You have to stay in the camp and not go anywhere. Otherwise, I won't be able to answer to Commander Liu, Adjutant N, and Madame Lan. Commander Liu got you to protect me, right? Zhou Wen said after some thought. That's right. Su Wen nodded. He didn't say that I can't leave the military camp, right? Zhou Wen asked again. This. Su Wen hesitated. Since he didn't say that I'm not allowed to go out and wants you to protect me, you have to go wherever I go, right? Zhou Wen asked again. Su Wen was slightly taken aback as her expression turned odd. Then, do you want to go? Zhou Wen stared at Su Wen with a burning gaze. No, I can't let you take the risk. Su Wen struggled inwardly. Let's just go to the Blood River to take a look. We won't cross it. Waiting here is just too torturous. You also want to wait at the nearest spot, right? Zhou Wen said sincerely as he looked at Su Wen. This. Su Wen was still very hesitant. Anyway, I have to go take a look. It's up to you whether you want to go or not, Zhou Wen said as he circled around Su Wen and walked towards the camp's entrance. Su Wen gritted her teeth and didn't stop him. She chased after him out of the camp. Su Wen felt that a pampered fellow like Zhou Wen definitely wouldn't have the guts to enter the ancient battlefield if he stayed in the military camp all day gaming and eating supplements. The main reason was that she was equally anxious. If she continued waiting in the military camp, she would feel uneasy. In fact, she wanted to go more than Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen's words had already made her waver. How long will it take you to walk? Come on up. Su Wen summoned a white lion. The lion was extremely majestic and taller than a horse. Zhou Wen originally wanted to summon a mount, but his mount wasn't very fast. It wasn't even as fast as he ran, so it was useless. Seeing that Su Wen's white lion was running rather fast, Zhou Wen jumped up and sat behind her. Su Wen ordered the white lion to run at full speed as it chased after Commander Liu and company. Don't run too fast, Zhou Wen suddenly said to Su Wen. Su Wen was slightly taken aback before she understood what Zhou Wen meant. If they ran too fast and caught up to Commander Liu and company, they would definitely be chased back. Su Wen snorted. When she saw the army from afar, she slowed down a little. Su Wen drove the white lion in front while Zhou Wen sat behind and continued gaming. Ghost Bride had also found the tunnel and stone steps in the ruins. However, there seemed to be some terrifying power inside that made Ghost Bride hesitate. Zhou Wen knew that Ghost Bride must have sensed something, but unfortunately, she couldn't express it. Zhou Wen could only vaguely sense from her consciousness that she seemed to be afraid of something and didn't dare enter the tunnel. Since Ghost Bride didn't dare enter, Zhou Wen could only think of a way to enter himself. Ouyang Lan and the former principal might be trapped inside. Even if he didn't enter in the future, and Xing would definitely enter. If he could know what danger was inside ahead of time, he could warn Xing ahead of time, reducing their sacrifices and giving him a greater chance of rescuing Ouyang Lan and the former principal. What is the power that severed a person's head in the ruins? Zhou Wen had already restarted the game a few times and thought of many methods, but he still couldn't figure out what kind of power it was. Even Dr. Darkness's light of penetration didn't see any problems in the ruins. Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment before getting Dr. Darkness to transform into his companion form. Dr. Darkness's body transformed into a beam of light that attached itself to the blood-colored avatar like a phantom. Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback when he realized that in the blood-colored avatar's skill column there were 3 additional skills: Scalpel, Fight Poison with Poison, and Light of Penetration. Dr. Darkness's soul form actually attached his power to his owner, allowing the owner to use his powers. Zhou Wen was delighted as he controlled the blood-colored avatar to head for the ruins again. Soon, he encountered a Wangliang. Zhou knew how Dr. Darkness had killed the Wangliang, so he activated Light of Penetration. His eyes shot out beams of light at the Wangliang's body. Under the effects of Light of Penetration, the Wangliang's body seemed to turn transparent. The various meridians and organs inside could be seen clearly. Zhou immediately saw a tiny black bead rapidly flowing in the Wangliang's body. The bead was only the size of a rice grain and was extremely inconspicuous. It flowed very quickly, jumping around like a heartbeat. Furthermore, it didn't have any pattern, making it difficult to capture its trajectory. Zhou immediately came to a realization and knew how to kill the Wangliang. Activating Ghost Steps, Zhou instantly appeared behind the Wangliang and activated Scalpel. A white light condensed into a scalpel that instantly stabbed into the Wangliang's body, hitting the beating bead. Bam! The moment the bead broke, the Wangliang's body immediately turned into a pool of black water that scattered to the ground. A notification popped up in-game that he had killed an epic creature, the Wangliang. As long as I can figure out the abilities and weaknesses of epic creatures, it's not impossible for me to kill them with my current abilities. Zhou increasingly felt the importance of knowing himself and his enemy. Chapter 266. The two sides of the Blood River were two completely different worlds. On one side, it was sunny and sunny, while on the other side, it was a bloody rain that spanned thousands of kilometers. The mountains and rivers were stained with blood, making it look like hell. When Zhou and Su Wen arrived at the Blood River, Lu Yunxian had already led the officers across the river. "Head Nurse Su, why are you here?" The junior officer who stayed behind hurriedly greeted Su Wen when he saw her. "I really can't feel at ease staying at the encampment. I think it's best we wait here for Commander Lu and the rest to return," Su Wen said as she sized up the interior of the car. Although she felt that she shouldn't cross the river and that she had to obey orders to take care of Zhou, her eyes couldn't help but look inside the car, hoping to find the remaining special raincoats. Without the special raincoats, it was impossible to move an inch in the blood rain. One would turn into a lunatic the moment they came into contact with the rain. They would only be sending themselves to their death. Unfortunately, the number of special raincoats was limited. Ouyang Lan and Enxing had taken away 2 batches, so there weren't many left. Lu Yunxian and company had only obtained more than 10, so only a dozen people crossed the river. The rest could only stay here and wait for reinforcements. Without the special raincoats, Su Wen was extremely disappointed. It was impossible for her to cross the river now. Zhou stood by the Blood River and looked at the vast blood rain across from him. He had mixed feelings. Before coming to Zhuolu, he felt that he definitely wouldn't enter the ancient battlefield. He would only game outside and be of some help. But now, he had to cross the river and personally enter that terrifying place. "I hope I don't have to use the words left behind by teacher." Zhou felt that there shouldn't be too much danger. He already had a good understanding of the ancient battlefield in-game. As long as he didn't enter the traces, there wouldn't be too much danger. "Are there any more raincoats?" Zhou asked the officer. Su Wen said, "There are too few raincoats. Commander Lu and the rest don't even have enough, so how can there be any left? Don't let your imagination run wild. Just wait here for Commander Lu and the rest to return. With Commander Lu and Adjutant An's abilities, they will definitely be able to save Madame Lan and old Mr. Ouyang and return safely." Zhou stood by the Blood River and looked across the river. He slowly said, "You're right. Sheng and company are very outstanding. Perhaps they can return safely." With that said, Zhou paused for a moment as the glint in his eyes gradually turned sharp. He then said, "Unfortunately, I'm a person who doesn't like gambling. I can't sit here and wait for the needle of the wheel of fortune to stop. I can't watch the needle cycle between luck and misfortune without doing anything. I want to control the needle and the wheel to stop where I want them." The more Su Ji heard, the more she felt that something was amiss. When she heard that, her expression changed slightly. Just as she was about to say something, she saw Zhou Wen's body, which was wrapped in black armor, suddenly run towards the blood river. In a few steps, he reached the edge of the river bank and leaped up, charging towards the opposite bank. Su Wen and company were alarmed. Without any hesitation, Su Wen reached out to grab an umbrella beside her. At the same time, she summoned a strange bird that flickered with lightning. The lightning bird transformed into a pair of wings and landed on her back. Although Zhou Wen was wearing armor, the armor couldn't protect his entire body. There would still be blood rain falling on him. From Su Wen's point of view, Zhou Wen's actions were courting death. The lightning wings on Su Wen's back flapped as she immediately streaked across the sky like a bolt of lightning. She caught up to Zhou Wen, who was about to rush into the blood rain, and grabbed his shoulder. At the same time, she opened the umbrella to block the falling raindrop. "Are you crazy?" Zhou Wen looked at Su Wen, feeling perplexed. It was impossible for the umbrella to block all the blood rain. Furthermore, Su Wen was mainly using the umbrella to cover Zhou Wen's body. Many of the blood rain splattered on her body. Although she had already summoned an armored companion beast to protect her, she was unable to wrap her entire body in the armor. A few drops of blood still landed on her cheek. Zhou Wen couldn't understand why Su Wen would do that. She had nothing to do with him, and she didn't seem to like him. However, she had risked her life to rush over. This was something Zhou Wen couldn't understand from his worldview. "You're the crazy one. Go back." Su Wen grabbed Zhou Wen and exerted strength with the wings on her back, hoping to fly back to the other side. However, she had underestimated the infecting ability of the blood rain. In an instant, Su Wen's pupils turned red as though blood was about to drip down. Her consciousness suddenly blurred as she nearly fell from the sky into the river of blood. With the last bit of rationality she had left, Su Wen threw Zhou Wen to the other side and landed on the shore shrouded in the blood rain. She held the umbrella and stood motionless in the blood rain. She knew that she couldn't return. Wait for Commander Liu and the others to return. You aren't young anymore. Don't always cause trouble for others. No one can always protect you. Su Wen's voice gradually turned hoarse as her eyes gradually turned ferocious. Blood vessels began to bulge around her eyes. "Bastard! You bastard!" When the officer on the other side saw this scene, he felt like tearing Zhou Wen apart as he roared in grief and indignation. In midair, Zhou Wen looked at Su Wen with an odd expression. He was a relatively indifferent person, so he couldn't understand why Su Wen would do such a thing for a stranger she didn't like. However, at that moment, he didn't want Su Wen to die just like that. Using the momentum in midair, he circled around like a strange bird and charged towards the other side in midair. Like an arrow that had left the bowstring, he shot towards Su Wen, who was standing with an umbrella on the other side. When Su Wen saw Zhou Wen turn back in midair, she wanted to say something, but her consciousness turned blurry. A violent emotion filled her nerves. Kill, kill, kill. Su Wen only wanted to kill. She yearned to see blood. Any life in her eyes became filthy, as though only killing and blood could make her feel comfortable. Boom! She released the umbrella in her hand and allowed it to fall to the ground. Su Wen pressed her palms together as the wings on her back crackled with lightning. Her entire body seemed to be enveloped by lightning as she struck out with both hands, transforming into a bolt of lightning that blasted towards Zhou Wen. The officers on the other side watched helplessly as this scene unfolded, but they couldn't do anything. They felt so uncomfortable that they nearly went crazy. From their point of view, Zhou Wen was definitely doomed when facing Su Wen's attack in midair. Even if he was lucky enough not to be killed, he would end up like Su Wen once he fell into the blood river. The green lightning was like a strange snake that was about to devour Zhou Wen in midair. However, in front of everyone, Zhou Wen's figure suddenly turned blurry as he vanished into thin air. It left the officers stunned. When they saw Zhou Wen again, they realized that he was already standing on the other side of the river. He was standing behind Su-won, his body emitting a faint white light. One hand was holding onto the umbrella that was about to fall to the ground, and the other hand seemed to be holding something as it stabbed into Su-won's neck. Su-won, whose eyes were bloodshot, immediately slumped to the ground. Jo-won held the umbrella with one hand and hugged Su-won with the other. He leaped into the air and returned to the other side like an eagle. Chapter 267. Don't come over. Jo-won shouted coldly to stop the officers who were about to rush over. He placed Su-won, who was moaning in pain, on the ground and said, "Do you have water? Bring some water over." The officers looked at Jo-won, who was covered in blood, with strange and complicated looks in their eyes. They couldn't connect him to the young master student from before. "Yes," an officer answered and hurriedly brought a water flask over. "Just throw it over." "Bring more over," Jo-won said. The officer hurriedly threw the water flask over as the other officers hurriedly went to get water. Su-won felt as though her entire body was being pricked by needles. It was so uncomfortable that she couldn't speak, but her consciousness was much clearer. She watched as Jo-won used water to wash away the blood rain on her face and hair. Finally, he washed away the blood rain on her armor before carrying her and placing her on the clean grass. "She'll recover in a while. Take good care of her." Jo-won glanced at Su-won before getting up and walking to the other side of the river. He flew over again. Su-won endured the pain and pressed her hands to the ground, supporting her upper body to sit up. She watched as Jo-won's figure disappeared into the blood rain. Her expression was indescribably odd. "Head Nurse Su, are you all right?" the officers asked. "I'm fine." Su-won's body was still in extreme pain, but she could sense that her condition was improving. She didn't know how Jo-won had done it. Up to now, they hadn't figured out an effective way to resist the blood rain. Unless one's physique was strong enough to reach the epic stage, coupled with some protective primordial energy skills, one could withstand the blood rain. However, once one was infected by the blood rain, there was no good way to treat it. As the head nurse, Su-won knew how terrifying the blood rain was. However, not only was Jo-won able to ignore the virus in the blood rain, but he was also able to expel it from her body. This left her feeling incredulous. She could no longer connect Jo-won to the young master student who played games all day and ate supplement. Could it be that as long as one enters the family, one will become so strange even if their surname isn't En? Another figure surfaced in Su-won's mind. It was a man who wore a smile all day, looking harmless. The Jo-won in front of her was extremely similar to that man from back then. Jo-won quickly advanced through the blood rain. He had to quickly catch up to Lu Yunxian and company and track them to find the Qi. After hearing Su-won's description, Jo-won knew that the one who swallowed the stone artifact was definitely the Qi. They couldn't see anything in the blood rain, but Jo-won could use Truth Listener's powers to know his surroundings. He quickly found Commander Lu and company. However, to Jo-won's surprise, Commander Lu and company didn't go far. They advanced at an extremely slow speed. Although they were wearing special raincoats, the blood rain obstructed their vision. They didn't dare walk too fast, afraid that they would accidentally bump into dimensional creatures. Once their raincoats were torn apart, they would die. Jo-won didn't know where the Qi was, so he could only patiently follow behind them. Thankfully, with the blood rain, Jo-won didn't need to be too far away from them, nor did he need to hide himself. All he needed to do was follow them. No one could discover him in the blood rain. Jo-won held an umbrella and slowly advanced through the blood rain. At the same time, he observed the situation ahead of him. If they encountered other dimensional creatures, Jo-won had to ensure their safety and ensure that they could find the Qi that had swallowed the stone artifact. Lu Yunxian's expression was solemn. As he advanced through the blood rain, even at the epic stage, he could only see more than 10 meters ahead. He couldn't see anything further. Under such circumstances, it was as though they were in a dangerous jungle. The blood rain around them was like dense grass, with venomous snakes and ferocious beasts that could jump out at any moment. Not to mention the legendary officers, even Lu Yunxian himself was trembling in fear as he walked. Suddenly, Lu Yunxian felt a chill run down his spine as he had an ominous premonition. He immediately shouted, "Be careful. There might be an enemy attack." Lu Yunxian believed in his intuition. This was something he had developed over the years of fighting on the battlefield. Although it wasn't necessarily accurate, it had saved his life many times. Everyone used their rain goggles to look around, but it was useless. The blood rain blocked their vision, preventing them from seeing anything. Lu Yunxian tried his best to look forward, but no matter how he looked, the rain quickly blurred his goggles. Vaguely, he seemed to see a figure walking over, but when he looked carefully, he didn't seem to see anything. "Who's in front? If it's a human, shout." Lu Yunxian shouted at the person in front of him, but no one answered him. There was only the sound of rain. However, as the figure got closer and closer, Lu Yunxian finally saw it clearly. It was a strange person with black hair that reached the ground. He walked over in the blood rain, his body drenched and his skin stained with blood. He was very certain that even if he was human, he had probably become a monster. "That's a ghost! Lu Qingji also saw the figure and immediately shouted, his voice filled with fear. "Vanguard troops, attack!" Lu Yunxian summoned his companion beast. It was a rock monster that could withstand the power of the blood rain. The other officers also controlled the few companion beasts that could withstand the blood rain and charged forward with the rock monster. The few companion beasts used their respective powers as all sorts of attacks enveloped the strange man that was slowly walking over from the blood rain. In particular, the epic rock monster smashed the strange man's head with a terrifying punch. Bam! The strange person's head exploded before his entire body exploded, turning into black water that splattered everywhere. The officers cheered, but halfway through their cheers their faces froze. This was because the companion beasts that were stained with the black water were like snow that had been stained with charcoal. Large amounts of white gas emitted from their bodies. A few legendary companion beasts instantly melted into corpse water. The rock monster's body was also corroded until it was riddled with potholes. Its rock arm had fractured, and one of its legs had been corroded. Its body fell into the blood. Under everyone's horrified gazes, the black water condensed into a black-haired strange person again. The strange person, whose face was covered by black hair, opened his mouth and revealed a silent, eerie smile at them. It made everyone's scalps tingle as goosebumps rose on their bodies. They wished they could immediately turn around and escape. However, as soldiers, although they were afraid, they still raised their weapons and launched the most ferocious attack at the strange person when they heard Lu Yunxian's order to attack. The sword beams and saber beams intersected as Lu Yunxian's fist force erupted like a volcano. It was the most domineering strike augmented by his life soul, Fire General. It could melt metal and stone. Chapter 268. The strange man's figure moved quickly like a wandering spirit amidst the attacks. His figure appeared and disappeared like a ghost, causing all the attacks to hit nothing but air. Lu Yunxian's domineering explosive fist blasted open a ravine more than 10 meters long on the ground. Large amounts of blood evaporated, but it failed to injure the strange man at all. Ah! One of the officers retreated in shock. The strange man's figure appeared, and he was already face to face with him. A pair of completely black eyes looked at him through his hair, causing him to feel extreme fear. He involuntarily screamed and retreated. However, the strange man's hand was already grabbing at his neck like a ghost claw. "How dare you!" Lu Yunxian punched out violently as flames roared out like a ferocious tiger. However, the strange man's figure flashed through the rain of blood. When he appeared again, he was already behind the officer. A pair of ghostly claws was about to grab the officer's head. Instantly, everyone felt their hearts turn cold. They knew very well that this was only the first one. Soon, all of them would be killed. In a battle against dimensional creatures, as long as they couldn't find a way to defeat them, it was very easy for them to be wiped out. The only way out was to escape. Lu Yunxian also knew this very well, so he was prepared to give the order to retreat. He wanted them to escape while he held back the terrifying dimensional creature. At most, he would die in battle. Just as the strange man's ghostly claws were about to grab the young officer's head, a strong beam of light suddenly shone from afar and landed on the strange man. When the strange man was illuminated by the light, he subconsciously raised his hands to cover his face. Then, he looked in the direction of the strong light. "All of you, retreat," a voice sounded. Only then did the officer react and rush out, escaping the strange man's grasp. The other officers, including Lu Yunxian, subconsciously retreated a distance. Hum! With a trembling hum, a bamboo blade tore through the sky and stabbed into the strange man's body. Then, the strange man's body turned into a pool of black water that scattered to the ground. The bamboo blade also stabbed diagonally into the ground that was drowned by the blood rain. However, unlike before, the monster did not revive and condense again. Instead, it gradually fused with the blood rain and seeped into the mud on the ground. Lu Yunxian and company looked in the direction of the bamboo blade. They didn't know who had saved them, but Lu Yunxian felt that the voice he had heard was somewhat familiar. He felt like he had seen this strange bamboo blade somewhere before, but he couldn't recall it. Soon, they saw a figure walking over the blood. The person was holding an umbrella in his hand. However, unlike the heavy, custom-made raincoats they were wearing, the person was only wearing ordinary black armor. He walked in the blood and his body was splashed with a lot of blood, but he wasn't infected by the virus in the blood rain. They couldn't help but be amazed. They thought that the person in front of them with an umbrella was definitely an extremely powerful epic expert. Lu Yunxian found the umbrella somewhat familiar. After careful thought, he seemed to have one of his own, but he didn't bring it with him. In such a place, an umbrella was useless. The person walked over with an umbrella until he reached the bamboo blade that was stabbed diagonally into the ground. He reached out to pull it out and return it to its scabbard. As his face was covered by the umbrella, Lu Yunxian couldn't see his face clearly. He saluted and said, "Thank you for saving us, friend. I wonder if you can leave your name." Lu Yunxian of the 3rd Battalion of the 7th Regiment of the Sunset Army will forever be grateful for your kindness. I will definitely repay you in the future. Upon hearing Lu Yunxian's words, the person looked up at Lu Yunxian. The umbrella's edge tilted up slightly, allowing Lu Yunxian to finally see the person's face clearly. Then, he was completely stunned. His mouth was agape and he forgot to say anything else. It wasn't just Lu Yunxian. All the officers of the 3rd Battalion widened their eyes as they looked at the face revealed under the umbrella in disbelief, as though they were dumbfounded. The blood rain was still falling incessantly, but it was dead silent everywhere except for where it fell. "Commander Lu, there's not much time left. Hurry up and find the dimensional creature that swallowed the stone artifact." Zhou walked forward with the bamboo blade in hand. He originally didn't want to appear, but Lu Yunxian and company were clearly no match for the Wangliang. Lu Yunxian's strength wasn't inferior to the Wangliang's, and his fire powers could restrain the Wangliang to a certain extent. However, in the endless blood rain, his fire elemental powers were greatly suppressed. As for the Wangliang, it was greatly augmented. Just the ability to escape through water greatly increased the Wangliang's speed. Lu Yunxian's attacks couldn't touch it at all. "Young Master One, adjutant and has given me a death order to take good care of you. You are absolutely not allowed to step into the ancient battlefield." Lu Yunxian's way of addressing Zhou was still the same, but be it his tone or attitude, they felt completely different. Soldiers obeyed orders and respected the strong. In the past, Zhou was a foppish scion to them, so no matter how noble his status was, they wouldn't treat him well. However, Zhou had come to the ancient battlefield alone and killed a dimensional creature that even they were helpless against. He had even saved their companions' lives, immediately winning their respect. "But I'm already here, aren't I?" Zhou looked at Lu Qingji and asked, "How far are we from where you encountered the dimensional creature?" "About 5 kilometers away," Lu Qingji answered subconsciously. "Commander Lu, if it's possible, get your subordinates to return to the Blood River to provide support. You, Lu Qingji, and I will advance at full speed with light equipment. We have to retrieve the stone artifact in the shortest time possible," Zhou said to Lu Yunxian. These legendary officers were no different from sending themselves to their deaths in such a place. "Young Master One, take us along. We aren't afraid of death. We can scout the way for you." "Young Master One, take us with you. We can help." Before Lu Yunxian could say a word, the officers immediately shouted. All of them were extremely agitated. Zhou frowned slightly. He really didn't understand what was going on with these people. It was as though sending themselves to their deaths was a glorious thing. Perhaps that saying is true. What kind of general leads what kind of soldiers? From Su-Wen, Lu Yunxian, and the others, I can imagine what kind of person their leader is. At that moment, Zhou suddenly felt that the man he had never taken to heart might be much more terrifying than he had imagined. Zhou didn't know how a leader who could make soldiers willing to die was done. At the very least, he couldn't do it, nor did he want to do it. Immediately return to the Blood River and prepare to provide support. That's an order. Lu Yunxian also knew that he had taken things for granted. Legendary officers and their companion beasts were useless here. The primordial gold guns were almost useless, so leaving them behind was no different from sending them to their death. After forcefully ordering the officers to return, leaving only Lu Qingji and Zhou behind, Lu Yunxian looked at Zhou and said seriously, "Young Master One, I have something to ask you. Please answer me truthfully." Chapter 269. What? Zhou frowned. Before you came to Zhuolu, you had already decided to enter the ancient battlefield? Or was it a last-minute decision? Lu Yunxian asked. "What's the difference if I had a plan in advance?" Zhou asked. "There's a difference. If you had a plan in advance, you would have naturally made a lot of preparations. You wouldn't die here so easily. If it's just a spur-of-the-moment decision, I'll send you back no matter what," Lu Yunxian said. "I did make a lot of preparations. I shouldn't die that easily. Let's go. We don't have much time left. We have to find the stone artifact and send it to the ruins as soon as possible." Zhou looked at Lu Qingji and said, "Lead the way. Just walk forward. If I don't say stop, keep walking." Lu Qingji nodded. Due to Zhou arrival, the fear in his heart lessened greatly. They had previously encountered a Wangliang and many people had died. However, the Wangliang had been easily killed by Zhou, reducing his psychological fear greatly. The trio continued forward. Although there were fewer people, the atmosphere didn't seem as oppressive as before. Lu Yunxian looked at Zhou, who was walking with an umbrella, and found it odd. He couldn't connect the current Zhou with the Zhou he knew in the past. "Stop!" Lu Yunxian suddenly heard Zhou's voice and hurriedly stopped to look at him. Seeing that Zhou was staring ahead, he traced his gaze, but all he saw was a rain of blood. Apart from that, he couldn't see anything. "Lu Qingji, take a step back." Zhou walked in front of Lu Qingji and pulled out his bamboo blade. The bamboo blade shimmered with a cold glint amidst the blood vessels. When the rain hit the blade, not a single drop could be seen. It slid down. Even in the rain, the bamboo blade remained unstained. After a while, Lu Yunxian saw another strange person walk over from the rain of blood. It was identical to the strange person they had encountered before. He couldn't help but be vigilant as he gathered his strength in preparation for battle. However, Zhou directly moved. His eyes shot out a beam that resembled a searchlight that shone down on the strange man. In the next second, Zhou figure vanished from his spot. When he appeared again, the bamboo blade pierced through the strange man's body, causing it to explode into a pool of black liquid. A dimensional crystal dropped. Lu Yunxian glanced at Zhou and felt increasingly odd. He suspected that Zhou was really a legendary student. In this terrifying place where even epic experts tread on thin ice, he seemed to be able to control everything. With a swing of his saber, he could easily kill dimensional creatures that even he was helpless against. "Let's continue," Zhou said to Lu Qingji as he picked up the dimensional crystal. "Yes, young Master One." At this time, Lu Qingji's spirit was much better. He responded and strode forward. The fear in his heart seemed to have lessened a lot. For the rest of the journey, Zhou and company didn't encounter any more dimensional creatures. There weren't many dimensional creatures in the ancient battlefield to begin with, but every one of them was extremely terrifying and had their own characteristics. If Zhou hadn't gained a deep understanding of them in-game and had the means to restrain dimensional creatures, the three of them would have died a long time ago. After walking for more than 5 kilometers, they still didn't see the qi that Lu Qingji mentioned. It was unknown if Lu Qingji had led them in the wrong direction or if the qi had already gone somewhere else. "Old Lu, how much further?" Lu Yunxian also felt that they had gone too far as he asked. Lu Qingji scratched his head and said, "We should have already reached the area where we encountered it, but for some reason, we haven't seen any traces of it." With Lu Qingji saying that, Zhou and Lu Yunxian felt that something was amiss. If the qi had really left the area, where could they find it in the huge ancient battlefield? Furthermore, there was more than one qi in the battlefield. How would they know which one was the one that had swallowed the stone artifact? "Let's not go any further. Let's search the vicinity." The qi, Mei, Wang, and Liang that Zhou encountered in-game would wander in a fixed area. They basically wouldn't stray too far away. However, this was real life and not a game. No one knew if the qi would still be here. The three of them adjusted their direction slightly and searched the surroundings. After searching uneasily for a while, Zhou was pleasantly surprised to find a qi. However, after seeing the qi's appearance, Zhou frowned and said to Lu Qingji, "Take a look and see if that monster swallowed the stone artifact you brought back." Zhou had seen many qi in-game, and they were basically the same. He couldn't tell any difference. However, this qi was clearly different from the qi that Zhou had seen before. Typical qi had black scales. Although they looked strange, they had the appearance of a living creature. However, the qi in front of him was different. Its body was grayish-white in color and it looked like a stone sculpture. If it wasn't for the fact that it was slowly walking over, Zhou definitely wouldn't have thought that it was a living creature. Lu Qingji couldn't see it at first, but when the qi approached, he saw it clearly. His face was filled with puzzlement. From the looks of it, it doesn't look wrong, but the one we saw was a living creature. Why does this one look like a stone statue? Just as Lu Qingji said that, the qi let out a roar as gray flames rose from its body. Then, Zhou and company felt the ground tremble violently. "No good. Dodge." Zhou flew up and at the instant his feet left the ground, stone spears stabbed out from the ground. Lu Yunxian and Lu Qingji also jumped up and weren't stabbed by the sharp stone spears. They didn't have the ability to withstand the blood rain. If they were stabbed by the stone spears, even if they didn't die, they would probably lose their lives as long as their special raincoats were damaged. Zhou was alarmed and puzzled. This qi was somewhat different from the one he had seen in-game. Even its skills were different. The qi had already charged forward with a roar. As he didn't know anything about it, Zhou didn't dare forcefully fight it. He summoned the three-eyed golden warrior, hoping to test the strange qi's abilities. Although the three-eyed golden warrior was only at the legendary stage, it had the golden body talent and the invincible golden divine art skill. Previously, when facing the Qi in-game, it had been able to withstand 2 or 3 of its attacks without dying. Upon seeing the three-eyed golden warrior blocking its way, C rolled its eyes and shot out 2 blurry beams of light that shot straight at the three-eyed golden warrior. Seeing that it was another skill he had never seen before, Zhou immediately felt uneasy. However, it was already too late for him to retract the three-eyed golden warrior. When the beam landed on the three-eyed golden warrior, its body cracked like tempered glass. In the next second, it shattered into pieces on the ground. It had been killed. Chapter 270. Zhou felt his heart ache. Although the three-eyed golden warrior was only a legendary pet, it was very rare. Furthermore, it was resilient enough. Zhou had always used it in-game to scout ahead. Now that it had been killed, it was impossible for it to be revived like in-game. The tattoo representing the three-eyed golden warrior on Zhou's body vanished as well, making him realize that this wasn't a game. He only had one life, so he was doomed if he died. Lu Yunxian let out a roar as he struck out with an explosive flaming fist. The terrifying flames charged at the stone Qi like a ferocious tiger. The stone Qi's eyes shot out beams of light once again, colliding with the flaming tiger. Immediately, there was a violent explosion in the air as the flaming tiger and light dissipated. Flames rose from Lu Yunxian's body as though a flaming general was attached to him. His fists continuously blasted out explosive flames, and every punch was like a ferocious tiger pouncing at the stone Qi. Although the beams of light emitted by the stone Qi's eyes were powerful, they were relatively slow. The interval was a little long, so it couldn't withstand that many flaming tiger fists. Just as more than 10 flaming tigers were about to slam into it, it roared and the gray gas on its body condensed into a grayish-white stone dragon. The stone dragon opened its mouth and sucked in, swallowing more than 10 flaming tigers. There wasn't a single sound, as though its stomach was a bottomless abyss. Although the stone dragon life soul's power was terrifying, Zhou had already seen it in-game. He wasn't surprised and instead felt somewhat fortunate. At the very least, this strange stone Qi still retained some of its abilities and characteristics. It wasn't completely untraceable. Zhou had no intention of helping Lu Yunxian and the stone Qi's battle. All he did was watch from the side. After all, he was only at the legendary stage. Before figuring out the stone Qi's abilities and weaknesses, it wouldn't be of much use even if he helped. It might even affect Lu Yunxian's performance. Sometimes, proper observation was more efficient than direct combat. Zhou patiently waited for an opportunity. Lu Yunxian was indeed worthy of being a battalion commander. His flaming powers were extremely violent. Apart from being a little slow, his other aspects were considered impressive among epic creatures. Furthermore, with the augmentation of the flaming general life soul, Lu Yunxian constantly struck out with flaming tiger fists without any signs of his primordial energy weakening. The man and the stone Qi fought crazily, but the stone Qi clearly had the upper hand. The stone dragon life soul on its body only needed to open its mouth to suck in all of Lu Yunxian's flaming tiger fists. It looked effortless. Fortunately, the stone dragon was not like the purple air bell, which could cause a backlash. It could only swallow it and be done with it. Otherwise, it would be even more terrifying. The stone Qi had been unable to break through Lu Yunxian's flaming tiger fist, so it became somewhat irascible. It actually charged forward in a probing manner. Its body collided with the flaming tiger fist and was sent retreating a few steps. However, its body wasn't injured. The stone dragon inhaled as gray beams shot out from the stone Qi's eyes. It forcefully broke through the flaming tiger fist's seal and slammed into Lu Yunxian. Lu Yunxian hurriedly summoned a few companion beasts. This was because the rock monster he was most proud of had died in the previous battle. Although the few he could use now were not bad, they were still inferior to the rock monster. The stone Qi wreaked havoc as it tore with its gigantic claws. Its gaze swept across the area, and in a moment, it killed all the companion beasts Lu Yunxian had summoned. Zhou was secretly alarmed. The stone chi hadn't used the black smoke skill of an ordinary chi. This left Zhou somewhat helpless. In the game, Zhou had used the purple air bell to absorb the chi's black smoke. Before using it to deal with the chi, the black smoke had powerful hypnotic abilities. Even the chi couldn't withstand the power of sleep, so Zhou was able to easily kill it. However, the stone chi hadn't released its black smoke skill. Zhou had no way of absorbing it even if he wanted to. Now, I can only absorb the stone chi's gray gaze. Seeing that Lu Yunxian was unable to resist the stone chi, Zhou couldn't wait any longer. He summoned the purple air bell and with a flash, he arrived beside Lu Yunxian. The stone chi's gaze shot at Lu Yunxian. Zhou took a step in front of Lu Yunxian and raised the purple air bell to shine at the blurry beam. Immediately, he saw the blurry beam of light rush into the bell and be sucked in like noodles. Then, Zhou held the bell and shook it at the stone chi. The bell spewed out a thick gray beam of light that shot towards the stone chi's true body. Bam! The beam shot out from the stone chi's eyes to resist the beam of light spewed out by the bell, but it was shattered. The beam of light was about to land on its body. However, the stone dragon life soul let out a roar and opened its mouth to suck in the beam of light. It didn't injure the stone chi. Indeed, it still doesn't work. Zhou was somewhat depressed. Previously, when he used the black smoke to deal with the chi, the black dragon life soul would enter a slumber if it swallowed the black smoke. Now, there was no such benefit. Lu Yunxian also took the opportunity to attack the stone chi, but it was of little use. Zhou relied on the purple air bell's ability to absorb the stone chi's gaze and counterattack. By cooperating with Lu Yunxian, he could only hold back the stone chi. It was almost impossible to kill it. Not long after, Lu Yunxian's punches began to weaken. Although he had the augmentation of Flame General, his primordial energy was still severely depleted. He was beginning to feel like he couldn't hold on any longer. Zhou got Dr. Darkness to possess him and used the light of penetration on the stone chi. However, the outcome left Zhou alarmed. Under the eye of penetration, the stone chi's body was a blurry blur. He couldn't see through it. What's going on? Why can't I see through it? Zhou was alarmed. Previously, when he was fighting the Wangliang and the Qi, he could use the eye of penetration to observe their bodies, but now it was completely useless. It could only mean that the stone Qi was definitely extraordinary. Could it be that this stone Qi is the Qi that swallowed the stone artifact? It was affected by the stone artifact, causing it to undergo such a strange change? Zhou guessed. At that moment, the stone Qi's patience seemed to be worn out by the duo. It roared as the stone dragon on its body let out a dragon roar. Then, it opened its mouth and spewed out a mouthful of gray smoke. The gray smoke looked like the black smoke spewed out by an ordinary black dragon, but the color was somewhat different. Zhou couldn't care less. He picked up the purple air bell and sucked at the gray smoke. Then, he saw the gray smoke surge into the purple air bell. Chapter 271. The purple air bell was sucked into the purple air bell, but Zhou expression changed drastically. The metallic purple bell began to turn grayish-white, as though it was stained with a layer of lime powder. Furthermore, it was rapidly petrifying, looking like it would soon turn into stone. Zhou didn't dare hesitate as he hurriedly shook the purple air bell and spewed out the gray smoke. The gray smoke swept towards the stone Qi like a fog. The stone dragon life soul opened its mouth and sucked in all the gray smoke. Unlike before, the gray smoke had no effect on the stone dragon life soul. The stone dragon remained lively, but the purple air bell in Zhou hand still had a layer of gray smoke on it. It didn't return to its original appearance after releasing the gray smoke. There's definitely something wrong with this stone Qi if it really became like this because it devoured the stone artifact. What is a stone artifact? How can it possess such terrifying power? What did Ouyang Lan and company encounter in the stone cave? Many thoughts flashed through Zhou Wen's mind. The stone chi turned ferocious as it charged at Zhou Wen again. Its eyes shot out beams of light, but thankfully, Zhou Wen's movement technique was as fast as lightning, allowing him to dodge the stone chi's attack. Lu Yunxian hurriedly struck out Flaming Tiger Fist to salvage the situation, but it was devoured by the stone dragon life soul. The stone chi changed its target and pounced at Lu Yunxian. Lu Yunxian was wearing a raincoat, so he didn't dare use his body to block the stone chi's attack. Otherwise, the raincoat would definitely shatter, and he would be doomed. Seeing that Lu Yunxian had nowhere to retreat, Zhou Wen hurriedly used ghost steps to appear behind the stone chi and slashed at its neck. The stone dragon life soul that was wrapped around the stone chi roared and spewed gray smoke at Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen could only retreat. Since the purple air bell couldn't block the gray smoke, there was no way he could. He didn't dare clash head-on with it. Lu Yunxian rolled on the ground in a sorry state before dodging the beam of light shot out by the stone chi's eyes. Instantly, the stone chi was extremely arrogant as it slaughtered Zhou Wen and Lu Yunxian. Lu Qingji's injuries hadn't fully healed, and his companion beasts had long been sacrificed. He had no combat strength at all, so all he could do was fire at the stone chi with a machine gun. However, when the bullets mixed with primordial gold hit the stone puppet, they had no effect at all. They bounced off like billiards. Seeing that Lu Yunxian couldn't hold on any longer and was about to be caught by the stone chi, Zhou Wen summoned Ghost Bride and got her to rush over, striking the stone chi with the Yin Wind Claw. However, the effect of the Yin Wind Claw was very limited. Basically, it was just scratching an itch. The stone chi turned its head and shot a gaze at Ghost Bride. The gray beam shot past her body without causing any damage, but Zhou Wen saw her body clearly tremble as though she had been electrocuted. Her aura clearly weakened. This stone puppet is truly heaven-defying. Zhou Wen was shocked to see that the stone puppet could actually injure the body of a ghost. Knowing that this was a battle of life and death, there was no room for hesitation. Zhou Wen held the bamboo blade as a mysterious and powerful aura surged out of his body. The sigh of the king descended upon him, and the powerful strength allowed his body to float in midair. He didn't need any external help to stand in midair. Lu Yunxian dodged the stone chi's attack in a sorry state as a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky and headed straight for the stone chi's body. Then, bolts of lightning crisscrossed and shuttled through the stone chi's body at an unbelievable speed. As it was too fast, even the stone chi didn't react in time. By the time it reacted and the stone dragon life soul spewed out gray smoke, Zhou Wen's transcendent flying immortal had already ended. Once transcendent flying immortal was over, Zhou Wen immediately used ghost steps to open up a distance and dodge the billowing gray smoke. As he landed on the ground, he suppressed the power of the sigh of the king. In just a moment, Zhou Wen felt as though all his muscles had been torn apart. He was in excruciating pain. Crack! The stone chi's body shattered piece by piece, turning into a pile of rocks that scattered to the ground. Its body had been diced into a pile of rocks by transcendent flying immortal. Before Zhou Wen and company could rejoice, the rocks began to move again. It was as though an invisible hand was piecing the blocks together, piecing the rocks back into their original state, turning them into a lively stone chi. Lu Yunxian and Lu Qingji instantly felt despair. The stone chi was already incomprehensibly powerful. There were almost no flaws to speak of. However, Zhou Wen's eyes were like lightning as they shimmered with a calm glow. When the stone chi's body was sliced apart by transcendent flying immortal, Truth Listener's ability allowed him to condense everything he heard into an image in his mind. At that moment, Zhou Wen discovered that there was a strange equilateral triangular stone among the rocks that the stone chi had been diced into. The stone was different from the stones on the stone chi's body. Although it was triangular, its edges were curved and there was a circular hole in the middle. It looked very ancient and mysterious. Furthermore, when the stone chi resurrected, It seemed to have reformed the rubble with it as the center. Lu Qingji, is the stone artifact you brought back a triangular stone with a circular hole in the middle? Zhou shouted as he dodged the stone cheese attacks. How did you know? Lu Qingji was immediately taken aback. Zhou was now certain that the stone artifact was most likely the reason why the stone qi had become so strange. Without any hesitation, he used the Sigh of the King again despite the damage to his body. As the terrifying power descended, Zhou felt all his bones groan in pain as though they would snap at any moment. His muscles, which had already been torn to begin with, now had bloody cracks appearing on them. Zhou endured the pain and used ghost steps again, appearing beside the stone qi like a ghost. However, this time the stone qi was prepared. Just as Zhou appeared, the ancient dragon life soul spewed out a mouthful of gray smoke at the spot where he appeared. Zhou held the purple air bell that seemed to be stained with dust and pointed it at the gray smoke. He sucked the gray smoke into the bell, but the bell completely petrified. Without waiting for Zhou to shake it again, cracks appeared on its body before it collapsed and was completely destroyed. Transcendent Flying Immortal. After releasing the bell, Zhou drew his saber and used Transcendent Flying Immortal. He transformed into a beam of light that crisscrossed the stone qi's body, constantly killing it. The sharpness of the bamboo blade, coupled with the terrifying power of the Sigh of the King and the domineering might of Transcendent Flying Immortal, slashed apart the stone qi's stone body once again. At the instant the stone qi's body shattered, a cold glint flashed in Zhou's eyes as he threw out the bamboo blade. The bamboo blade transformed into a cold beam that tore through the rubble and brought out one of the stones. With a flash, Zhou activated ghost steps and instantly appeared in front of the bamboo blade. As he grabbed the bamboo blade, he pressed down on the stone. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.